All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Today is Tuesday, March 19th. It is 6 o'clock, Board of Health meeting. We have a rather full agenda tonight, and as chairman, I guess I do have the prerogative to try to kind of push some things along. We have people here for well variance, wetland and SID variance, analysis and variance. Gary Magnuson's here from CMG. We have Title V engineer interviews, which I'm asking that we put that kind of towards the bottom.
These are the two variances.
And the reason for that is because we're going to have to go into executive session once we do the interviews, just to allow the discussion between the board members. And Jim, you had mentioned something earlier, if you would.
You can add an agenda item that you're going to enter into executive session in motion acceptance, and then we'll just to talk about the candidates and what your
Just the
opinion is. Will
candidates.
come out of executive session to make a decision.
Okay, so
If the board deems to do so, that's up to the
we
board.
want to be above board, and if that's what it takes to do it correctly and have it in the record. Do you make a motion then for?
At that time, yeah.
Okay.
And
can
then
do
you
it.
gotta read a little.
Yeah, I'll read the spiel off at the
Okay.
time. When we do it, when it's appropriate, we'll, after the interviews, if that's, I think, if it's all right to you, Mr. Chairman, after you conduct the two interviews, then add a motion to add an agenda to the, add an item to the agenda, and I'll read off the reasons for convening to executive session as instructed, and then we can do that.
That sounds good. At that point, then, we'll have the other folks, the variances, and Gary won't have to stick around for that, certainly.
You're right.
That's good. Okay. Ongoing business, vaping, which is becoming a big issue. It's all over national news now. We'll briefly touch on that, depending on time. And believe me, this is going to be on our agenda going forward for quite some time. Flint Road landfill, H-Foot Road, Berry Corner Road, and Elmore Lane. We have some folks here for that, so we do want to provide updates on that. Burlingame Road water testing, we'll probably touch on that when we do talk with Gary Magnuson. And then marijuana discussion as time allows, because this is again ongoing. All right, so if we can, new business, first up on the agenda, 87 Leland Drive. There's a well variance for Mr. Robert Duff.
He's here, and Jamie's here.
Okay.
We did the inspection, so.
Jamie Terry, take it away.
If you want to pull up the plan, we can take a look at it.
Okay.
So I did do the review.
Oh, here it is.
Good, you have it.
83 Leland Drive?
I know. It's 83.
83,
It's
okay.
83.
It says 87.
On the agenda, it's wrong. but
Okay,
it's on
all
the
right.
paperwork.
Paperwork's right.
So
Jen's wrong.
you have what you need, or do you need something
Well, I
from this?
just wanted to, we could just talk about it together
Sure.
if you'd like to. They're just proposing. I don't want to take your thunder here.
No. Go right ahead.
From what I understand, this is an upgrade for an existing system. This is the reservoir down here, just to get you acquainted where it is. This is Leland Drive coming in. And they're proposing on a very small lot here, with the constraints that they have, to put in a tight tank here. And so the offsets are to the wells that existing over here on the Smith property, and the new well here for the existing property.
So it's a tight tank that's going in, which would mean that you'd have alarms for when it gets to a certain level. So it should never overflow. It's a new tank. And what is currently being used for septic or a leach?
There is a cesspool right here.
Okay.
So what's being provided is
this
definitely safer.
Definitely
Yeah.
a big upgrade.
For sure.
And this, I'm sorry,
That's
and this existing cesspool would be probably less than the required setback
Yeah, I
as it
think-
is anyway.
It's definitely less than 100.
Yeah, the
Okay.
lawn is only
If you wanna-
43 feet across at the
Okay,
top.
so-
The house is 22.
Yeah.
And so it just, it
So
keeps
well less
getting
than that.
narrower and narrower when you add things in.
Yeah,
So my recommendation after review of the plan is that this is definitely more protective than what's currently existing, and that this is the best solution for this property.
certainly. Do we have any other neighbors here that wanted to speak about it?
There was a neighbor that we notified.
The Smiths.
The Smiths.
Their
That's
wells
this
are
house right
abutted
here.
one of
Okay.
the,
It's their well that's of concern.
Okay,
So here's the certified letter that I sent to them. I don't know if you want a copy of that.
You do.
you do. So did anybody get back to you?
Yeah, they called me and they said that they had no concerns. They were just curious as to, you know,
Where it would be.
why it was where it was.
Right.
So I sent them a copy of this print and they looked it over. They actually came up Saturday and walked
Okay,
around.
good.
And they were fine with everything. They understand the constraints and
Yeah.
they have the same issue on their lot.
Now, I have another question.
Very tight.
Is this a year-round residence or a seasonal?
It's gonna be year round.
It is, okay. And we have, how many, it probably says somewhere here, how many bedrooms?
Two.
Two bedrooms.
So it needs to have a deed restriction, which it may already have.
And it's what, 1,500 gallons or larger?
3,000.
3,000?
Minimum's 2.
Okay.
How close is it to this well?
To
I think
where?
it's 22,
Oh, yeah.
Scale it.
yeah.
I think Jamie has the phone.
Yeah. Yes.
23.
Yeah, 23 to their well, and it's a little further to the neighbor's well, the
You wanna know
Smith's
for the
well.
neighbors well too?
No, it's, you know,
Well, tight tank is
It's
always
just,
gonna be
just
better
with those
when you're that
setbacks in the
close.
wells,
Oh, yeah.
it's impossible. Yeah, to try to put the tank down front, we would have a problem pumping it up.
So this is what you have to do now, anytime there's a system failure, when you're at that close proximity, right there at the reservoir.
You'd certainly have to make it fit as best you can, but
Right.
it's a difficult situation.
Yeah.
Was that, Mr. Duff, was that the catalyst? There was a system failure?
This, yes, this is failing.
Okay.
And we're remodeling the house, and there was no way it was gonna pass to, use for future use.
You,
Right.
you should, you probably already know this, but in case you don't, the property owner can file for a tax refund because they're repairing a failed system.
Oh,
So it's a,
okay.
it's a
Tax credit.
3-year tax
Tax
credit.
credit.
Septic credit, and it
Yeah.
used to be, oh gosh, I did this years ago when I upgraded to Title V, almost
I
20
think
years
it's
ago.
3, 3, and 1. I think it's $7,000.
Okay, that's the maximum.
I think so.
I think I got 5,400. So it's
Yeah.
substantial.
Yeah, that
So
would be good.
the way you do
That
that
would
is, I
help.
think you contact our Board of Health, and you'll get a certificate of.
Compliance, and then you can
Well,
show.
you'll get that
Compliance.
anyway once
Right.
the tank
Certificate of
is
So
compliance
don't-
would be
That's what
issued.
you'll
Yeah,
need.
don't lose that, and make sure you put that in, because that'll be an additional tax refund from the state of Massachusetts. And it was $1,500 maximum, I believe, per year.
It's
been so
3 years,
long.
up to 44%, I think, or was it 30?
I thought it was 3,000, 3,000, and 1,000, but
Yeah.
I might be wrong.
Yeah.
I
No,
thought it was
Credit is
7.
40% of the cost, up to 15,000 for the design cost.
Yeah.
At least that's what I
Yeah.
looked up quickly, but I could be very wrong.
Yeah. So
No, it sounds right.
I redid my system, and it was 13,100 with engineering fees, so I got back 5,400
That's great.
over 3 years, I believe.
It's also a pretty good
Yeah,
rate.
that helps.
Yeah,
That
yes,
helps.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
any other questions, Kathleen or
yeah,
Matt?
are you Mr. Duff?
Yes, I am.
All right, so you're the engineer on
That
this?
is correct.
And you have no problem with it, you're comfortable with it?
No, and the truth of the matter, we have a property 3 ways down.
Mhm.
So yeah, the tight thing, this is a very tight lot. It's only 43 feet up top.
Mhm.
And we just, 50-foot setbacks from the well, 10 feet from property line, there was not much space to work with.
Jamie, you agree with it, Jamie?
I am.
And it's also gonna help, not that this has happened, but when you have a leach pit that's that close to, in this case, a reservoir, not necessarily drinking reservoir, but for
A water supply.
recreational use. Yeah,
So
it's gonna help.
the lake, without the lake, these properties would be seriously
Sure.
devalued.
Yes,
So
so I,
we understand, I
Yeah.
understand that very much, having a property out there since 1958,
right,
so
I see
the
it as
parents, to be truthful.
a good upgrade.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the print, designed for Michael and Bonnie Landry, designed by Mr. Duff at 83 Leland Drive, as proposed to this board.
Second?
all in favor? Aye. You're good to go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you.
you.
I'm out of the trailer now and out of the house.
Excuse me, did you interview 2 candidates to replace Mr. Malley?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Well, I was actually the agent out here before Jim, in
Oh, yeah.
1993, 94 with Cullen Engineering.
Oh, okay. What's your last name?
No, Mr. Duff? Yes.
Before Russ?
Russ was there, Russ Stevens was there at the time.
And you were with Russ?
Turner.
Yeah,
Russ
well, Russ
Turner.
would do the I did the perks and stuff in the plan review, and then Russ was doing the inspections, and then Jim.
I
took
seen your
over.
name on some paperwork.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Some of the old stuff.
Last time the meeting was over next across the
Oh,
street.
yes, oh, yeah.
Thank you very much.
You
Okay,
got it.
thank you.
Take care, thank you.
Oh, Jamie, this goes in, that's the copy.
Yeah, let me put that on Andrea's desk now so we don't lose it.
All right, if we're done with Leland Drive, we can move on to,
I,
Yes?
just talking about the Leland Drive, Jim, you talked about a restriction on that. We ought to look into that deed restriction.
can we
You
do
know-
that, Jim?
It's a
Not
requirement on the
necessarily.
permit, so before the certificate of compliance is issued, it has to be recorded.
Okay.
If it's already recorded on the registry of deeds,
Mm.
myself or Jim or Andrea, any of us could look it up at any time.
What was,
If
I didn't
it's-
get the question, I'm sorry.
The deed restriction for this
For the tight
particular.
tank.
The tight tank?
Because it's a two-bedroom.
We'll type it up and we'll have it notarized and put in the file.
And so essentially, when they record it at the registry,
Yep.
they stamp it with a book and page at the top.
Mhm.
And as long as it comes back with that stamp on it, that's the registry stamp,
Yeah.
that's all this office
And
really
we
needs.
put a letter in also, because you crusted the Charlton stamp, which we ordered, a raised seal, because our COCs were getting kicked back from the banks. I think the last mention, we have that too, so we also put a letter. Anytime you do everything, we draft it up as a narrative and put it in the file,
It's a good way to do it.
along with the deed restriction.
Yeah.
So it's noted that at this date and time, without going through the minutes, that it's recorded in the file when we look it up.
But when a permit is issued for that tomorrow, it will say right on it, deed
Yep.
restriction required.
It'll have us across the top.
Okay. All right, so that's Leland Drive. We'll move on to 37 J Davis Road, which has a wetland and sieve analysis variance from Jamie Terry.
So, I actually did the soil testing out here on this one. It's an existing three-bedroom home. I believe they are going to tear down the home and then rebuild a new home. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
And so they tested up here. This is a slopes all the way down. So it goes from like 885 to 870 is what it will end up being, yeah, so like 870 is on here. So it's a pretty significant slope. And they tried to test a little bit on the hill and it just wasn't working. So they went down here to do the system testing. It was wet the day we were there. It was really wet. And so they took a sieve analysis. I personally kind of feel like it's one of those variance requests that's silly to have to come before you because a decision was made in the field by the engineer and the inspector at the time that it was so wet it needed to have this. And so the professional opinion has already been had. But Title V says it comes before you unless you grant that authority to an agent of the board. So I obviously have no concerns about having a sieve analysis there. And I feel like anytime one comes before you, there shouldn't be a concern because somebody's already said that that's what was necessary that day. And then the offset to the wetlands, so you can see these little pieces here, they look like that's where the wetlands are. And so that's where the offset comes into play there. I don't have any concerns with it. It's considered an upgrade, even though they're gonna tear down the house, they're gonna keep it a three-bedroom. There were a couple of corrections that the engineer and I spoke about, but they were very minor. This run is so long from the septic tank down to the D-box. If it's over 100 feet, it needs to have a clean out. They just didn't show one, so he's gonna put a clean out in there. He didn't actually list that it needed a sieve analysis variance or local upgrade approval, so he's gonna list it on the plan. And then there was just a typographical error over here in the length of the pipe, so he's gonna fix that. But I certainly don't have any issues with it.
Now, this we'll have an amended copy that's all signed off.
Revised, correct?
Yeah, revised,
Mhm.
okay.
And so, I also think if you entertain these variances tonight, you should just make them contingent upon approval from conservation.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I think
Yeah.
that they're meeting tomorrow night for conservation.
Are you going in front of the Conservation Commission?
No, it would be the engineer to come in and do that.
Okay, but somebody will be, I'm
Somebody
assuming.
for the property will be representing it,
Okay.
doing the attorney.
Yeah, sure. You say that's pre-existing, they're gonna knock it down and then put a new construction?
Correct, but continue to keep it as a three-bedroom. If they were proposing to increase the number of bedrooms, they can't technically do a sieve analysis.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
I make a motion that we support the 2 variances, one for the sieve analysis, 2 for the distance from the wetlands on
37 J. Davis Road.
37 J. Davis Road as presented to this board, contingent upon approval from the Chartwell Conservation Commission.
I agree.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. We're good with it.
Great.
Thank you for that, Jamie.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
No,
Oh,
said
I
thank
thought
you.
you said Mr. Chairman. Sorry. All right. So next up, and I think we can do this, Gary Magnuson is here from CMG, and we want to make sure that we hit anything that's related to him before we say goodbye to you for the evening. Not that we don't like having you around, Gary, but
We miss you. It's been a
yeah, we
while.
do. It's been a while.
They had you
Everything
just to
okay?
talk to.
If you miss me and it's been a while, that's a good thing, generally.
Yeah, we haven't had
For
any
you
big
guys.
issues. You haven't had any calls at like 2 in the morning from us or anything,
No.
right?
So, it seems like there's 3 items under the ongoing business: Flint Road landfill, H Foot Road, Berry Corner, Eleanor Lane, and Burlingame water testing.
Mhm.
So, I didn't prepare anything in detail, but I'll talk to you about each of those items in order. So, Flint Road landfill, we'll talk about 90 Flint Road, the capped landfill first. Third-party inspection. Jim Malley was our third-party inspector. We obviously did not get one done last year. I've been working with Jim to do one through his illnesses at the end of the year. We never got it done. I've talked to DEP. That ship has sailed. We're okay. So I've been working to try to find you, the board, another third-party inspector. And I did find, interviewed, spoke with a couple of them, and Tessa David is the one that I thought would be the best. She's independent, works for herself, does third-party inspections of multiple landfills. I actually met her on site today. We did the inspection, very thorough, very detailed. We looked at every single monitoring well, photographed everything, walked the entire landfill. She was very impressed with your landfill, with the mowing, with the maintenance, with the swale maintenance. She had very minor comments. I spent over 2 hours with her out there today looking at everything. So the third-party inspection is required to be submitted to DEP within 30 days of doing the inspection. So she'll get a draft to me probably in 2 to 3 weeks. And then it does require, I think Jim can sign off on it as the agent. She'll sign it, he'll sign it. And the way the third-party inspection works is you guys, as the Board of Health, are the entity that's responsible for taking care of the landfill. You've hired CMG to do the monitoring of the landfill. You've hired other contractors to do mowing, and then if there's other things, you might hire somebody else. She's kind of the person that looks at all that and says, yeah, it's been done in accordance. So I've submitted her all of our reports, talked to her about those. She's researched the background. She had to understand all the permitting. And, obviously the file is lengthy and a little bit ugly in the days when the landfill was being capped. So she was very pleased to see how well it looked. And I explained to her, the board has done a nice job. They had some issues getting it capped correctly, but once that was done, it's been going well. So I think she'll be a good third-party inspector. I did stop in here with her, introduced her to Jim. I think she filled out some paperwork. She's given us a cost. I don't want to quote you on the number, but it was
$60 an hour.
Yeah, $60 an hour.
This is an email that
I'd asked
Tess
her.
had sent to
Yep.
Jim, and excuse me, Jim had forwarded to me, and I'm assuming you. I don't know.
I've seen
Yes,
it.
I assume Kathleen has also seen it. So Tessa has over 12 years of Mass DEP third-party operation and maintenance inspections. She's done that. It looks pretty good. And this is your recommendation, Jim.
I met with her today, spoke to her. She was very impressed with our landfill, how it's kept. She said whoever does the mowing does a really good job. There was some trees, she said maximum size was this, we'll cut down. She said, but it looks good. She said she was impressed the way it was maintained. And she's looking forward to working for the board. And she's very, Garrison, very smart on the ball. She's very energetic. and very intelligent. She said that she's going to be forwarding out the reports. I gave her my card and said, you know, that we, you know, need to get this done. And working with Gary, but she was very nice, and I think the board would like her. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
When it's all done and said, Gary, with her cost and everything, do you feel as though it's gonna come in comparable in price to what Mr. Malley was charging?
I do. She had some upfront costs the first year because it's
Mhm.
her obligation. The third-party inspection is a 14-page document, and she has to check off that she's reviewed the landfill closure permits and all the documents. So she's got, you know, she's probably going to have $1,000 just of effort up front to get to speed.
Mhm.
She already contacted DEP, got some documents that she couldn't get from this office or from me. She researched everything. So absolutely, I feel this year you're probably going to spend a little bit more money.
Yeah.
But next year, very consistent with where Jim is. And I think she's the kind of person we can work with
Mhm.
on, you know, if there's any, the mowing, the scalping, and those
Mhm.
things. I talked to her about those. She's impressed with the way you guys have handled those. So I think the cost will be similar, and I think she'll do a real good job.
Okay.
So that's the update on Tessa. And so the landfill, we just submitted another status report. The data is essentially the same. We still are finding 1,4-dioxin in 2-3 monitoring wells out there. Those are more than 500 feet from any private wells, so that's good. We are scheduled to do the next groundwater sampling event in May. We just did the last landfill soil gas 2 weeks ago. No issues with that. That was good. So that landfill is pretty stable. Not too worried about kind of where that one sits right now. DEP did have a couple questions on one of our submittals. I took care of that for them. They just want a little more clarification. So that's all set. 54 Flint Road, the landfill there. No groundwater monitoring or anything since the last sampling event we did, because that was done, actually, it was done back in November. So that data is kind of consistent, it's stable, nothing's changing there. The more important thing on that is the MCP work that we're doing relative to the drinking water on Flint Road. So last month we sampled 63 and 59 as required by DEP. 59 is clean again. It's been clean for quite a long time. 63 had been clean for a while, and we got a 1,4-dioxin hit at 0.163, and in the duplicate it was non-detect at 0.15. So consistent. That one, whenever we've had hits, it's very close to 0.15, 0.16. As required, we notified the homeowner. You guys are already providing bottled water. You've continued to provide bottled water. As required, we notified Jim. As required, we notified DEP. It's really not a big change. It's just we get 2 or 3 quarters with no detections, and then we get a detection.
Mhm.
So pretty consistent. 54 Flint Road, in regards to the comprehensive site assessment that the board submitted back in 2010 that DEP has been reviewing. We did some test pits on the side of the road that they had asked for. We took care of that. That's resolved. They came back to me with the next question, which is they want us to update the hydraulic conductivity testing for the landfill, because the data is so old, and they're trying to evaluate how fast contaminants could be moving. So I talked to Jim about that. I sent you guys an email. He said proceed with that. So I have that scheduled for sometime next month. That's about a day's worth of work out there with some computers and data loggers and doing some testing in the wells, and then doing some calculations and getting that back to DEP. Once we get that to them, my understanding is that's the last thing they need to finalize their review of the comprehensive site assessment. So we're going to do that late March, probably April now, and then I would expect you're going to hear from DEP within a couple of months, and they're going to approve the comprehensive site assessment, and then they're going to ask for the alternatives analysis to be done, which is how are you going to cap the landfill, or what are you going to do? So we'll delve into that. That'll probably be fiscal 20 now. We had put aside some money for that for fiscal 19, but we haven't touched any of that. So it'll probably happen in 20 at this point, because we're not going to hear from DEP until probably May at the earliest. So that's the status of that landfill. And gonna skip over H Foot Road for a minute, cause I'll go to Burlingame, only because it's directly downgrading of 90 Flint Road. So the only house that had responded was number 129 Burlingame Road. I did the testing on a Saturday, that's the only day they were available. Tested for VOCs and 1,4-dioxin as requested. All came back non-detect. Sent a copy of that report to this office as well as to the homeowners directly.
What's the well depth there? Do you recall?
I don't know off the top of my head, I have to look
just
it up.
curious. It's fine.
That is the closest well to the closest house to the landfill.
Mhm.
Looking out their back door, you can see the landfill. So that is, if only one person has to be tested, that's the best one.
So is it likely that the others wouldn't be because it's the closest one?
You don't
or
know.
is it-
Well-
It's like sticking a needle in your arm and trying to hit a vein.
H Foot Road, you've got contamination at one house and nothing at the next one.
Right, yeah.
So, obviously you wanna start in the closest ones and the most proximal ones,
Yeah.
but, it's relatively proximal to the wetland where the wetlands crosses to, so it's in the lower spot of Burlingame Road, so any surface water coming off the landfill theoretically would infiltrate. It's a good one to test, came out good, that's good news.
You know, go ahead, Ned. You're
So-
probably gonna ask what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so kind of moving forward with that, we reached out to, I think, 9 different residents. Gary, does that sound about right?
We identified 9 and you sent to 3 and then you only got 1, so I think you sent to the next 3 and I believe you sent to the next 3.
So 9.
I believe you
So
sent to all of them.
So
We
we
reached-
sent to all 9 of them?
We reached out to 9, we got 1 back. I think my recommendation at this time for this board is, let's address it in 3 years and reach out to those 9 again, and at least that person would be in a system of every 3 years like they were up at H Foot Road. I believe our board did the due diligence that we were trying to see, and there's some relief in seeing non-detect. I think that would be my recommendation.
Gary, how do you feel about that?
I can't disagree with that, it seems logical. We did test these same wells for the Board of Selectmen. Don't quote me on it, I wanna say
2008.
8 or 10.
Yeah,
And they were,
something.
and now, we did not look for 1,4-dioxin then, because we weren't looking for it, but we did do the VOC tests, and they all came back non-detect. So, yeah, I
Well,
mean,
I guess I'm just surprised that the other 8
The other 8,
residents
yeah,
didn't take advantage of a free
Yeah.
well test.
free,
And there were 2 letters to each house, not just 1.
okay.
Sent it out.
And these would be the closest. I mean, it was a
Oh, yeah.
type of a fan type operation, or a straight line.
it's pretty much, we looked along
Yeah.
H,
No, I
Burlingame
remember
Road
looking
and
at
picked
that.
them out and.
Yeah.
And again, some of those had been tested. Of the ones that you offered the letters to this time, I believe all of them were, or most of them were included in that testing back in 2008. So it's their prerogative.
Right, I certainly don't want to press them anymore. The only thing that I was looking for was that if the other board members were thinking about potentially expanding, but, you know, if we've sent out 9 and we got 1 back, and these were the closest, I gotta believe that may be it for likely candidates for potential contamination, so I'm kind of leaning towards what Matt said, just give it another 3 years. I gotta believe that there's probably not a heck of a lot there, if anything. And what was the cost of your time plus the well test? A couple $1,000?
No, it's less than that. I haven't billed you for it, but it'll be under $1,000
Okay,
for that scope
but
of
still,
work.
it's,
I think I quoted 800 or something.
Yeah, I'm not concerned with the cost as much as I am, I'm
it
just
was a help, I know.
with the curious about why those 8 houses didn't respond
Well, we
to
can
free
speculate,
testing.
that, you know,
And,
if for some reason, whether they're staying in the house or not, they're thinking about moving, and then if there was some sort of a contamination there that could potentially affect the sale of their house. Or, I don't know, I can't imagine what else. We made it abundantly clear in the letters that this test would be free, 100% free to the homeowner, and if there was any issue at all, we would make sure that they had water supplied that was up to DEP standards. So, you know, other than that, I don't know what to say. We've done what we probably
Do you have any thoughts,
Should-
Jim?
should have done it.
We tried, even sent out a duplicate letter. I mean, you can't, I mean, it comes to a point where I had like 93 H-foot road. They've asked me to step in because they have a filtration system that needs to be tested. And the homeowners refused to let them in. And I went there and I had to call the police because there was an issue with the car. And we sent certified letters to her and everything. She just wouldn't answer. And the DEP was concerned because they're in a contaminated area. And finally, she allowed them in on Friday at 11. I called Matt Wagner and they finally got into test after months and months of trying. So people just don't like to, she said, I don't look at my mail.
What age group was it?
93 H-foot road for debt residents. And some people just don't like to, they don't pay attention to the mail, she said. She goes, I don't pay attention to the mail. What other way are you gonna do? What about phone calls and all that? But we did end up getting in and the DP was concerned and Matt Wagner, the LSP, so we did get in there, but like, even with Burlingame Road, send out duplicate letters and still no response, so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I do think that the board should address it in 3 years though, and not,
Oh, yes.
not
Yeah,
8
yeah.
or 10.
No,
Yeah,
correct.
the last time it was what, 10?
Yeah, 8 to 10-ish. And again, we do maybe try the same method and try and reach out for, every third house,
At
and
least we have it on record that we've tried and tried.
Mhm.
and maybe there'll be a homeowner change or a change in aquifers or something that
Or a change of heart.
change of heart. Anything could happen, and maybe we'll have better results.
Yeah.
But now, at least we have a general idea. A, we reached out to those people. B, we did get non-detect on the information we did get. So,
Yeah,
Which
it's
was
good
good.
news.
Yeah.
Very good news.
Yeah.
So Jim, put that on your agenda for 3 years from now.
All right, if my calendar goes that far, and God willing, I'm still here, I'll put that on there.
You'll be here. We'll all be here.
So the last agenda item for me is H Road, Berry Corner, Eleanor Lane.
Vitamins.
To be very, frank and honest with you, I haven't been following it in much detail, because, the Board of Selectmen asked to stop, didn't want to spend any money for our services for that. So I do get all the emails that Jim gets in regards to the data coming through. I look at those, I don't charge you guys for it, I take a look at it, just make sure everything's consistent. I kind of file it into that, can recover if I need to part of my brain. But most of it, if it's consistent, I just kind of forget about it. I have the emails if I need to look at them closer. I have not been following the construction schedule or any of those things because I think there's other people looking at that. It's unnecessary. I do communicate with DEP, and Kevin Dow's done a lot of projects, and I've told him point blank, if there's something comes up there that I should know about, let me know. I didn't ask him today, but I've talked to him a few weeks, I talk to him on a regular basis. Things are kind of stable. So that's kind of what I have to say about H-Foot Road, Berry Corner, Eleanor Lane is, everything I've seen says the train's moving forward, let it kind of go. I haven't seen any anomalous data coming from Ty and Bond in regards to the sampling, so.
Just came by mail,
What's that?
all the reporting from Time Bond.
Yeah.
How thick?
That's landfill. It's three books.
3 books.
Yeah.
So I would review I would review the semi-annual
Oh,
reports
yes.
and report back to you guys. But, and I can look at that, I can look at that in a half an hour and tell you what the concerns are. But in general, the fact that the water lines are going in, the fact that all the testing's being done, the landfill's being capped, it's only gonna get better, it's just gonna take time. So, that's what I have to say on that, and there's some residents here if they wanna ask
Yeah,
me a
Mrs.
question, I can try to
Whiting.
answer.
Mrs. Whiting, I don't recall any very recent emails from you. It's been relatively quiet in your neighborhood.
It has been quiet,
Good.
yeah. Ludlow Construction, I was telling Barry, came out and tagged some more trees, tagged trees on our property actually, and so previously they hadn't, and sent through the survey saying, just let us know you're okay with it, so we did, and we specifically noted that there were no trees that were tagged, so we were fine as was, and then right after we had a discussion here, they came out right after that meeting and tagged a couple of trees on our property, which we're fine with, not totally overjoyed, but we know they have to come down, so. And I think, that's really been pretty much all that's happening. We've seen them around, kind of looking around the neighborhood, trying to make sure they've got all the trees, but I think that's the point they're at right now is is looking at what has to come down. I think they want to do that before spring gets rolling and the ground gets really itchy and all of that, so.
We did help Ty and Bond with letters to all the residents to get the agreements to tie in, and they got overwhelmingly, I think 88% of the people have responded due to the letters for the tie-in officially to the, you know, from the street to the house to allow the work to be done, because it's a separate agreement. So 88%, she may be up to 90 by now, but Cassandra, we did a mailing for her, sent it to all the residents, so they were having difficulty, so.
So how many houses is that 88% comprised, you know, roughly?
Well, there's 80 homes, so.
Okay. So out of close to 100 homes. Okay.
So, and also, the odor response has changed. The person doing it has been terminated from Burton, and they have someone else doing it, and he's been not very good. So, not very good with his paperwork, not his assessment. So I sort of straightened him out a little and said, you need to do better with your documentation. So he was sending him blank and forgetting to fill them out sometimes. And Aaron?
Yeah, the last time we were here, he actually had some great reports.
He did.
He was right on.
But his paperwork he was having trouble getting it,
Oh.
all the attachments and stuff, so, but
I know
he's.
Mr. Jordan had trouble with
Yep.
getting his stuff, yeah.
Exactly, and it was because she's no longer doing that, so someone else is doing it. I know the gentleman, he's a good guy, so, and his had a 5+, which you've never seen before.
Right.
And I went up to the landfill and there were odors, I could smell it, so.
That's all I have.
That's it? We haven't seen you in 3 months, and you talked for, what, 15 minutes
I
maybe?
told him to keep it short.
Yeah, well,
Look at
we're,
you're almost on the second page on your agenda. I'm trying to help you.
I know you are, Gary, and we do appreciate you, believe me. Kathleen, anything for Mr. Magnuson?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Matt, anything else along these
Um,
lines?
Just a big thank you, Gary, for your continued service with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, don't go anywhere. Don't decide to move to Florida or anything, okay?
Yeah, I just got back from Colorado. I'm
He'll
staying.
be going to Denver.
So if you guys are good,
Thanks, Gary.
I
Good.
think we are.
Yeah.
thank you all.
Thanks again.
Thanks very
You're welcome.
much.
Have a good evening.
You're still on call, right?
Yeah, it's in my pocket.
Jim will get a hold of you if we need you. Thanks.
We got the
again.
hotline somewhere.
Thank you.
Mrs. Wyatt, say hi to Mike for us.
I will. Thank you.
See you later.
Thank
We also have on the agenda vaping and marijuana discussion, and to my mind, I know these are big topics. I'm afraid that once we get started talking about either one tonight, we may.
I
end up-
promised Deb LaPlaca that it was on the agenda, but I'm not sure we had time for it, so I wouldn't want to be.
Okay.
But
I really don't want to leave them off the agenda.
no, they should
I
be on
don't.
at all
No.
times.
This is
I don't
something.
want to leave off the discussion.
Okay.
We can limit it, but.
All right, so we'll do that then.
The vaping or the,
Vaping?
Both.
Vaping, all right, so vaping is up first, so we will start discussion on that. And, go ahead. Kathleen, if you want to start, I'm looking for
Sure.
some paperwork that I thought I brought with me.
Here. Something up there. So, one of the things that I brought up at the last meeting was that we should remove the displays of vaping materials.
Are these your photos or are these Jim
These are-
Philbrook's?
These are photos that I just took
But very similar to Jim's.
3/4 of an hour ago down at Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
yeah, those are
And,
ones I showed.
and I had never frankly looked at it before because,
It's bigger than their entire dairy display probably in the store.
right,
And that's for
Oh, yeah.
vaping.
And
It's
it is.
6 feet, you said, Jim, 6 feet
Well, it's
wide.
vaping and accessories, smoking accessories.
right. They do have, just as you, at the register, they do have, you have to be over 21 to buy any of these, and they are under glass. But at the same time, it's, I think I would like to bring back the motion that I had made originally, that we remove paraphernalia, that we have the stores remove the paraphernalia for vaping out of public display. so that people would just have to ask for it. I don't think, they've done that in other towns, and I think that's what we
So
should do
you're saying
here.
behind the counter, so that people can't see the paraphernalia, is that it?
Well, this is a big display.
Well, this is for the vaping cartridges or whatever you call them, I guess. I don't know a thing about vaping other than what I read.
Those are actually the vaping that comes with it, with the
So
whole
that's-
kit,
that's
we
the whole
would say.
kit, okay.
Like if you bought a pack of circuits, this is a vaping with all the flavor is indicated on the box with the vaping supplies that are in there. So, and you're right, they're large and getting even bigger. But
The displays?
the displays
are getting larger?
Well, no, they're locked and behind, and they did post the 21 as, but they're
Well, they're not behind,
major.
they're out
No,
front, but
they're flush with the front of the counter. Yeah.
But they're, so they're easily seen, and you can get up close and see what they say.
Yeah.
And so I just think it encourages, it encourages use.
I agree.
And according to what I've been told, you do have to be 21 to buy any of this stuff. But the 21-year-olds are selling it. They're buying
Yeah,
it,
of
selling it
course.
to the kids.
And that's without a doubt what's happening, because unless other towns are just leaving it out in the open for these kids to steal, or they're not checking IDs, it's pretty obvious that somebody 21 or over is supplying these kids. No doubt about it.
So since there's not a heck of a lot we can do, I would like to do what little we can do and remove the displays to remove the displays period, as they did in Webster.
So, how did they do it in Webster? They're still selling this stuff, but it's behind the counter and what?
I think they banned the mint, the different types of mint, but
So,
they did it through the
banana,
Tobacco
strawberry, and all this
Coalition.
other stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they banned all that. I think that it's, I did speak to Cheryl Sabara about the issues, and she said she's willing to come to a meeting and sit down and discuss it with you, what the board wants to do, and guide you in the right direction. She
Because-
did send me some stuff, but she said absolutely, she thinks this issue that is statewide issue, that the state may take action, but the local Board of Health certainly can, create a regulation if they deem, but you'd have to make sure it's written up and then sent forward to
Well,
make
I'd
sure.
be happy to have her come to a meeting and.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I think
talk
the
to
sooner.
us.
I didn't have her come to this meeting, but
Because we got a full
I mean,
agenda.
we didn't have it on the agenda, but I think the next meeting, she's willing to come, I think we should have her come. I think it's important.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
And because
yeah.
we're having marijuana facilities coming and stuff, and she's the one that's wrote the regulations that are the boilerplate. And she said that she'd be more than happy to, she said, tell your chairman if you'd like me to attend the next meeting, I'd be more than happy to come.
Are you up for that?
Yeah, it's always good when Cheryl comes to the meetings.
So,
Didn't you say, Jim, that if we do rewrite some of these regulations, or there was something that we had to take to the Attorney General?
no,
Or was that
that's marijuana. If you
Okay.
decided to do something with that,
Okay.
if you would decide to take away a license or whatever, then the Cannabis Control Commission is actually. But as far as vaping, it's a whole different thing.
Right.
We have more authority of if you'd like to do something with vaping. Cheryl said that she gave me some information that I sent you to everyone on the board
Yeah.
about statement of purpose and restricting tobacco sales and the rules and
Yeah.
regulations. Certainly, if this board deems it's, but I think we should get some legal advice from Cheryl to do it correctly, and I think that in the next meeting, I would have her come if the board deems that so. She said she agreed that she would come and provide some guidance on what to do next, at whatever direction the board decide to go
I
in.
think we're all in agreement. If you can get her here for the next meeting, and we'll
Sure.
decide that tonight.
Yep, whenever you post the meeting, I'll let her know as soon as possible so she can attend.
And if not, if that doesn't work for her, but some other week does, I mean, we'll try to work around her
Sure.
schedule.
Sure. She said she owes this visit and she understands the importance, so she did get right back to me and sent over the stuff that she actually just put the last dot on and forwarded them to me right away. So variances, penalties, and this is something that was sent to the board. These are the changes that, in the verbiage that were from the first one, that the board should look at, so we can.
Those are all marijuana?
These are for the marijuana, and this is for the sample for tobacco products, which
Okay.
includes the vaping.
Yep. So vaping.
So I strongly urge everyone to look at these before Cheryl comes.
Okay,
Okay.
I think I've got it in
Yep.
here somewhere. Vaping, so U.S. Food and Drug Administration just very recently came out, just in the past week, and they said, look, we know vaping is an issue. What we're suggesting, I believe it's nationwide, is to remove any flavored vaping products, from convenience stores and gas stations. And they didn't say how much further they're gonna go, but they said, we're opening up to a 30-day comment period.
Yeah, this is the comments right here.
Okay, so after that, they could say, you know what, we're good to go. They're no longer gonna be available. And then I would hope they would take it a step further and, like Kathleen says, put it behind the counter, kinda like they do with the risque
Well, you can
magazines
do
or
as a
whatever.
website, I think we did, 21 and over, which would only be allowed in a place that's someone over
Yeah,
21.
that's, yeah.
But that would really be the marijuana establishment that is there, or a store. I don't think we have anything that's strictly over 21 unless we really don't have any bars in the town that would be 21 that sell tobacco. It's not allowed, and so I'm not sure. But Cheryl said should provide the guidance and go over this regulation
This
if
would
the
be good.
board, and give you some direction.
So here's the other thing about vaping. I'm going to take a shot at these marketers, because they initially marketed these, and they still are, I believe. Oh, this is a great way to get people off cigarettes. Well, I know there's regular flavored cigarettes and there's menthol, but you've got, I mean, how many different flavors that are out there?
There's a lot.
It's so clear that they are going after people other than the ones who are trying to quit smoking. And that's a real concern of mine. So I think anything that we can do to limit the exposure of these flavored
Yeah.
vaping products is a big win, and just the cost and the amount of health damage that can and probably will be done to some of these kids, just awful.
I think that, I went to a food update class, speaking to a lot of people in a lot of towns, having problems with all their children. It seems like the in thing to do for all the kids to vape, and I think it's become a major issue that, everyone thinks that you have to vape, and they're younger kids. So I think that, as BAPAF did, I think I told you, and Jamie facilitated through the Dudley Child School Committee, that they are purchasing those detectors, correct, Jamie?
They looked into it, they looked,
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
come on up.
Good.
we talked about it at school committee, I brought it up as Jim had asked me to report, and, they talked about the cost, so they found out it's $1,000 a detector, just about, and they think they would have 10 different bathrooms that would need them in the high school alone, and so they haven't purchased them yet, but they're in the discussions to see where it would fit into the budget. They know that you've asked them to review it, they all feel like it's a concern. The principal for Shepherd Hill came and sat down and said it's definitely on their radar too, and they're definitely looking to find creative ways to try to rectify it. He did say that he's in a principals group, and that only 2 schools that they know of have purchased any of these, and they've kind of done it as a pilot this year. APATH sounds like one of them from the information that you guys had learned. And so they kind of said, as a principals group, they were sitting back for a year to see how that all went, because you can have the detectors, but if you don't have the enforcement that backs it up, if you don't have the manpower to be in the bathroom immediately to catch the person, we want to make sure that we actually are spending the money wisely. So, but it's on the agenda, it's on our agenda for next time as well.
And through the chair, Jamie, do you know how the detectors work? Because it's just air and water, so how did they figure that out, that it's vaping?
I don't know, it actually wasn't created for vaping. I know that it was created for another purpose. It escapes me what it was, but it wasn't for created for vaping.
Probably similar to smoke detectors.
It's like a photoelectric, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah, so there's different types of detection that you can get for sampling air. Yes, sir. Al?
As a comment on on vaping, it isn't just water that's in it.
Chemicals, yeah.
One of the base products is propylene glycol, and that's what gives it the white, misty
So it beeps.
color and discharge.
So that's what the machines can pick up?
And that's what the machine can pick up.
Okay.
They could pick up, actually they can even, smoke detectors can even pick up
It's like
steam.
it's like a shower.
But it's more they're picking up they'd be picking up the propylene glycol.
Okay.
Because what people do is when they inhale, they discharge, and they're discharging a huge amount of propylene glycol.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. So, this afternoon on CNN, this is actually CNN.com, I printed out a story that caught my eye. It's the U.S. Food and Drug Administration announced in November that vaping had increased nearly 80% among high schoolers and 50% among middle schoolers since the year before. And then it goes on, I'm not going to read much of this, but it's just, they're getting kids younger and younger hooked on nicotine. And the research is never going to be good for long term for what it's going to be doing to these kids. I could not be convinced otherwise. So I think anything that we can do as a board locally to apply pressure to limit even the chance of kids getting onto this. It's pretty addictive very quickly. So.
You know, and they have the template that was developed by the tobacco industry to market and sell and entice people, so that it's all been done by the tobacco
That's right.
industry all these years. They can just copy that. They don't have to.
That's
even
what
have
they're
to
doing. It
invent
says it in here. I'll let you have this when I'm done with it. Well,
Yeah.
I am done with it. You can take this because they actually bring up the marketing campaign. So what it is, you know, back 50 years ago when 50% or more of United States adults smoked cigarettes, Philip Morris and whoever else, Lorillard and whoever the other big tobacco companies were saying, geez, this is great. And then they lost more than half of that. We're down, the last I knew was 23% or less of Americans that smoke tobacco. So this is a way for them to regain some market share. And it's a horrible way to do it. I'm glad that the USDA is now stepping in. I'm glad that it's a discussion now with boards and schools, and that we as a board can do something, at least within the boundaries of Charlton, to limit what the kids are seeing, to keep them from being enticed into starting a nicotine addiction that can last their entire life. It just sickens me, absolutely sickens me. So if we can get Cheryl Sabara here for the next meeting, that would be great. Matt, anything else?
No?
You don't vape, do you?
I don't vape, no.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't probably ask that.
No, you can ask me, I don't
Yeah,
vape, no.
yeah.
Don't smoke cigarettes, no. No.
I smoked for 20 years, and it was the worst mistake of my life.
I despise any smoking. So.
Yep. I was glad to quit. It was tough to quit, but 25 years now.
So can we move on?
Yes, we can. This will be discussion for next time, and if we can get Cheryl Sabara
Sure.
for the next
I'll
meeting,
call her.
we'll
We'll just
put her on the
put her on the
agenda,
schedule.
make sure that she's here, and we'll review whatever information we've got prior to that. All right. The other discussion was to be a marijuana discussion. So Jim, I'm sure you have some background for us as to what's happened since our
I
last
heard,
meeting.
I had my marijuana advisory committee meeting that you stopped in at. We
Yep.
just discussed Foursquare as the other night, I believe at the selectmen's meeting, I believe that they did get a host agreement for the Route 20 building.
Yeah.
That's all I know. VGG did not attend the meeting, so there was no discussion with them. I know that Green Gold Group down the street, remember I mentioned about maybe 5 months that they would be there? It looks like it may be for medical sooner, but maybe end of April, maybe early May, where they would do the medical only. They still have to comply with the planning board for the changeover and the Cannabis Control Commission for the recreational sales. But the building has been complete, it's been signed off on, it's been inspected by the Cannabis Control Commission where I met at the building. And it's complete, but they're just waiting for a sign off from Kurt and from permission from the board to issue a permit for medical only at this time, not anything else but medical.
So what would we be waiting for as a Board of Health? What would be Kurt's signature, and then we be the final?
Kurt's signature, then we would
Okay.
issue. Well, the Cannabis Control Commission really regulates it, but through our regulations that we developed through the Board of Health, they require that the board sign off on, these three members sign off like on an occupancy permit or food permit, that their ability to operate.
But from everything that you've said to this board previous, up to this point, and from what you've seen, you've been on site visits to that facility at 20 and 31. You've talked with certainly police chief and
Yes.
Everybody else. Not meaning to put words in your mouth, but it seemed to me like you were, I can't say happy, but you were good with what they had come forth with so far as the security of the building, virtually everything. Correct?
I'm not happy. Those are probably the wrong words. They've satisfied the regulations up to this
Satisfied the
point.
regulations.
But they certainly have not completed certain things. They need to tie into the town's water, municipal water, and they have to complete the DOT's regulations for the curb cut, which they allowed a variance until the weather would permit that they would cut that open and change that over. And they still have to, a few other things to do. The Cannabis Control Commission hasn't given them the go-ahead on the medical. That's why they're waiting. But certainly the building itself is ready to receive product and open. They have the right security. There was some concerns about when they went to retail, parking, because they have not actually made any of these satellite parking lots that they had deals with. They don't think they need them now. They don't think they're going to have the traffic, and they think they have adequate parking. But the police are going to monitor that, and if they feel at any time that they're not, then they're going to have to make arrangements, because they're not going to allow cars to sit outside on that. But he doesn't feel he's going to have that traffic. He thinks that it's going to be slow.
What do they have for car parking currently? How many
I think he
designated
said he has 40 spots, 45 spots, because he owns that other building with the back parking lot with the front. So the fire department's been there, certainly the Cannabis Control Commission, the police chief, everyone has been, but he is not ready to open. He's ready, but the Cannabis Control Commission and this board would need to have to sign off on his license to operate. So, and Cheryl has written up a change in the regulations for safe operation of marijuana establishments, and I recommend the board read these, and we add the amendments in yellow to the ones that we've already accepted.
Can I get a copy of that?
Sure. You can have this one. I can just print another one. Mr. Chairman, I think someone has a hand.
Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hey, could I add just a comment to that? Thank you, Jim, for sharing
Yeah.
is that the email that went out through the Mass Association of Health Boards with the draft template?
Yes.
So those regulations, if I could please ask as a concerned citizen that nothing be approved by this board until those regulations are put in place and thoroughly considered. Because the minute you open the door to allow a marijuana operation in town and we have no regulations to fall back on when things don't go right, it's gonna be too late. So I would strongly urge that the board provide full consideration of all of the language and nuance in that. And Cheryl did write them. She has a tremendous amount of expertise. So when she's here at next meeting, maybe that's an opportunity to really go through piece by piece about, is this as well regulated as you can get according to the Cannabis Control Commission, and what are the implications of not adopting some of those regulations? I think when you read through that document, the lights go on of, oh my gosh, didn't think of it that way, didn't think this could happen, didn't think that could happen, and there's a lot in there to consider.
Yes.
We've already adopted the original draft. This is a revision.
Yep.
So, but she said when she comes, she would go over the whole thing, like you said, for a better understanding of what the regulations
Jim, I'm
mean.
seeing a lot of yellow highlights here. Are these ads or revisions or both?
Both.
Both, okay.
Yeah. But you're right, we should wait for Cheryl to provide forward so we can get better, I've read them, but they seem like the same. I'm not sure what the changes are, but I'd have to sit there in comparison. That's why she actually put the last dot, and I called her and she said, I just finished it. So you're gonna be the first, I'm gonna send it to you right now. So she sent it to me, and I did, and she adopted this to it. But I think Cheryl, when she gets here, can give you a better idea. And I think we do need to make sure that before you adopt anything, that we make sure that it's proper, adequate, and in the strict enforcement. And because later it's tough to come back later and say, well, no, we want to change it. You really can't do that. So now the Green Gold Group is the first one to really get their own, but they're only medical, so they're just going to be medical. until it's approved for recreational.
Yes.
And it also speaks to the drug paraphernalia issue and
Yeah.
the definitions that you have in your regulations, whether or not you've defined just drug paraphernalia or whether you're including marijuana accessories, which is another way that they refer to the devices used. And so are we regulating marijuana accessories along with drug paraphernalia, where they can be sold, how they can be marketed, to whom? I mean, it's rife with potential problems.
Oh, I'm sure.
This, if I may, Mr. Chairman, the selectmen have already adopted cannabis control 21. If any of those products for cannabis, if it's strictly for cannabis, can only be sold in an establishment that are 21 or older. It doesn't say tobacco, but it's cannabis, but that's what the selectmen and the town bylaws
So
have.
those would not be in any
Why-
convenience
why-
stores or?
They
Well,
did.
because most of those products, you could smoke anything in them.
Exactly.
So
that's what
they're
I told him,
not
it was
just for
weak.
marijuana. Right.
That's what I said. It meant nothing because
There's loopholes.
it says there's too many loopholes, so they just put for smoking only, and now you have them.
Right.
They only put for cannabis, but if they put for cannabis or smoking material, it would have covered more. Just leaving out that one word made it a moot point because they just put for tobacco only, it must be 21.
But
So it doesn't have any teeth.
Yep.
But we'll get some teeth in.
You have the ability
in the
to put the
regulations.
teeth in for
Yep.
this
Yeah.
town.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, when those are ready for distribution, could I call the office or send an email to get a copy?
You can have any copy you want if you want to leave me an email. It's
Oh, do
all
you mind?
public information.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. All right, I wasn't sure what was sending it. So great, no, thanks.
It's in the draft form now.
Oh, no,
all.
that's fine, just to kind of get up to
And
speed.
it's on the Mass Association of Health Boards, because I was looking at it earlier tonight.
Yeah.
But with these revisions too?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, with these revisions or?
Yeah, I believe they've been updated, yes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just gonna check
She
that.
sent them directly to me, so I didn't get on the Mass Association Health
And
Board.
just follow their link to marijuana.
Oh, great, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
So Jim, just so I don't lose
Yep.
my train of thought here. So if this is out there and Massachusetts and legal counsel for Massachusetts is making revisions, tightening up some of the loopholes and so forth, am I going along the same train of thought by saying it's not just this Board of Health, but it's the other 349 towns
Yeah.
that are also looking at this,
Yes.
and this would be statewide?
That's a boilerplate, and as Cheryl will tell you, she's not our legal counsel, but she provides legal guidance to
Well-
local boards of health. She has to put that in there.
Okay.
Yes, this is a boilerplate for all municipalities to look at, so
But
it's
they would have to
statewide.
adopt it individually, the individual towns?
Yes.
Or would this be something at the state level that?
No,
Governor
each,
Baker would do?
you have the authority in Charlton, as she said, you have broad authority as the
Yeah.
Board of Health to adopt any regulation deemed necessary to protect public health, safety of the environment. This is something that some towns may choose not to, they may delete, alter, or change. The document can be used that way. That's why, as she said, you take your time, look at it. It is long and lengthy, but I think if we have Cheryl here to go over it, we'll get a better idea of what it is. We adopted the original one, but this has been changed because it's constantly
It's on the
changing.
computer right there, on
So.
the Mass Association of Health
But-
Boards.
Can I add, it's a series of decisions to the chair, but
Yes.
this is a series of decisions for the town. And, you know, I think the question for Cheryl Sabara is this as tight as we can make it, or do we have additional options within the framework of this template? Because this is not an attempt to undo the voter mandate for legalized marijuana. That's not the purpose of it. The purpose of it is to control the distribution of it in our town.
Right.
And everything related to that is within your purview.
Mhm.
Well said, yes.
Yeah, and the last thing we want to do is be back here in 6 months or 6 years and be talking about grade schoolers now that are,
Oh.
and they're getting a hold of drug paraphernalia and marijuana and so forth.
We do need to, if we're gonna adopt something and change, we need to, like when Cheryl comes, if we did decide, we'd already adopted one, we could add the amendments, but we've already adopted the other one in our own. I think Matt was on the board at the time of the Worcester ones, we had the 4 things that we took from the Worcester regulations that we added to that also. So we need to, I'll draft it up in a better form once the board is better informed, and then we can get that, so I can enforce that on behalf of the board.
Perfect, yes.
May I ask?
You want to come on up? I mean.
No, that's, I'm
Okay.
sorry,
No, that's fine.
I'm here to.
Just, the invitation's there.
So we'll, the public have an opportunity for public comment on regulations to be forwarded by the board prior to any approvals of marijuana distribution dispensing facilities in town?
I would be open to that. Would we have to have that just as an agenda with maybe a larger form, maybe in the senior center downstairs, or?
I think that at any regular scheduled meeting, if the board deems so necessary, they can adopt any regulations
Yes.
that they deem necessary to protect. You don't need a
Right.
special hearing, you don't need a post. Only with Title V changes
Right.
are the ones that request that you have a post a hearing and you have a public hearing. This is an open meeting. I think if it's on the agenda and someone wants to attend, but I think she's saying is let people know that it's on the
Right.
agenda and
Yep.
not just.
And I would love to look at the proposed regulations and provide my own comments if you're open to comments. I have a
Of course.
copy of what the Mass
Yes.
Association of Health Board sent out and
Send them to me,
have some thoughts.
and I'll print them out and give them to the board.
And whatever you can do to spread the word, again, hopefully, if you want to contact Jim
Yeah,
or,
I'm happy to work with Jim.
okay.
Yeah.
Once we know that Cheryl is here, we want
I
certainly
can put it on
get.
Facebook.
Yeah, and
And,
get people
the
here.
agenda.
To Jim's point, I don't think it needs a hearing per se, but if there's a venue for comments, I'm
Correct.
happy to send my comments to Jim.
Yep,
Yeah.
well, not just you, but any friends you have, any parents, anybody, any resident in town or anybody in the public, actually.
And if I could just add to your prior point about how the big tobacco has been losing market share due to good regulation in this country and a decline in smoking rates, they're now investing in marijuana. So they're the largest investors in Canadian marijuana growing facilities, and it's coming to a backyard near you. And I certainly wonder where a 1 million square foot facility is getting its financing. But in Canada, now it's coming in billions from big tobacco.
Mhm.
So it's the same marketing mechanism driving the whole thing.
So could I just bring up another issue related to marijuana?
Of course you
So I'm
can.
just finding out about studies that have been done in Colorado and California with marijuana that's been grown. The level of pesticides are very high and much higher. It's kind of scary high, and that's the marijuana growers can't be regulated because marijuana hasn't been accepted, so the EPA won't regulate them, and the marijuana industry is tied in with the tobacco industry, and they're fighting any changes through Congress to regulate for the pesticides. In fact, they're trying to lower the requirements for pesticides used in marijuana growing. So particularly with regard to medical marijuana, people are already sick, and they could be by using marijuana that has too much pesticide in it, they could be hurting themselves even further. So it's just another issue I just wanted to bring to your attention, because it's been brought to my attention by Dr. Michael Greger, and who I have a lot of respect for, and he's got a video here detailing the oversight of it, which I sent to you guys earlier.
I read it, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
So Kathleen, to your point, I agree with you, and it looks like Cheryl agrees with you as well, because on one of the highlighted amendments on her print, it does talk about percentages, specifically being pesticide-free. It does, this particular sentence talks about the...
What page is that on, Matt?
I'm on page 8, 2B.
2B.
Which is an add-on, that's
Not
something that's been
to be.
changed.
It's one of the amendments.
To the independent laboratory testing confirms that CBD or hemp contains less than 0.3% THC and is pesticide-free. Yeah, so pesticide-free would be great. The level of pesticides that they've been finding in Colorado and California are extraordinarily high.
So, along those lines, Jim, you
Thanks,
are,
Matt. I didn't see that.
you are right up there with the Cannabis Control Commission, Marijuana Advisory Commission. At the state level, are current sellers required to test product for pesticides?
They are tested, they have to, each product is tested. Just like Foursquare, we had the meeting, they don't use any pesticides supposedly, that they're pesticide-free
Right.
growers.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the Green Gold Group, I believe they're also pesticide-free, but each product is tested by the Cannabis Control Commission before it's out and it's rated. But they restricted us as far as the food. The cannabis that's sold for edibles is not considered retail food and therefore not subjected to inspection.
So there could be pesticides going.
No, they're inspected for that.
They are, okay.
Yeah. And the product's inspected and graded, but they don't have to put, like, truth in labeling the product, born on date and all that, so that's what's subjected to. Retail food is what they tried to take away, is all retail food from local boards of health. We fought that. I thought it was ridiculous that they would think that retail food is not going to be inspected by the local board, or it didn't need to be permitted. But they did provide some leniency in the change in the food code, which I just went to that updated class, but it certainly, where the marijuana is not considered food, the edibles, so.
And if you think about what that means if a company is baking brownies and putting
Exactly.
marijuana in it, they are not subject to safe food handling practices because it's not food.
Nope.
So
It's ridiculous.
it's ridiculous.
Of course it's food.
I
If
thought it
you're,
was.
if you're ingesting it into your stomach, it's a food. I don't care what it's got.
And so the
or
Board of
what it
Health
doesn't
has
have.
the authority to clamp down on these kinds of definitions and what actually is gonna happen in order to protect the public who are consuming these things and thinking that somebody's regulating it.
Right.
It's tough, because then the Cannabis Control Commission on that end, if you cause a manifest injustice, they're not part of it, they're actually protected, and they just took it out of DPH's hands and said, there's nothing you can, they don't want you inspecting it as a food product, which I didn't agree with at all. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous, but that's something they've been working on a long time for even all retail food.
So there are a lot of questions for Cheryl about,
Oh, yeah.
how.
I
to
hope you'll
frame
be
this.
here for it, because.
I
you
hope so,
have
I'm not
some
sure what the
good
date
ideas.
is, but, yeah.
Well, we don't know
Well-
the date yet either, but we'll decide it tonight, and then hopefully she can come.
Yes.
And I'll make sure it gets on Facebook anyway, into the different
Yeah,
child websites.
I'll email it to you.
Thanks.
Oh, look, I have an enlarged calendar for March and April. And 3 weeks from today is April 9th, which is what I'm proposing. That's why I brought this out. I don't know what your schedules are, other board members or Jim, but
Like I said, I'm away next week. I'll be in St. Louis at the Nacho Conference,
Okay.
training.
Nacho conference?
Yes, National Association of City and County Health
You
Officials.
thought I was making
Nachos.
nachos.
Did you
No,
get a
it's-
ride?
I'm just
Huh?
picturing.
Did you get a ride there yet?
No, hopefully I'm on a plane that's not grounded out of Worcester Airport on Monday, so I'll be in
So will
St.
you be here on
Louis.
the 9th of April?
I believe, hope so.
Well, we
I'll be
can,
back.
well, we can throw it out there as tentative.
No, I'll be back.
Unless
He
Matt,
said
I don't
it,
know,
he said it'd
you're
be back.
fine?
He said it'd be back.
All right, and you're okay with the
Yeah,
9th?
let's do it.
The
for
8th I'm out.
All right, so right now, we're
Can we
going
get
with
Cheryl
April
for the
9th,
9th?
and that's.
I'll try Cheryl for the 9th.
We'll see what
I
happens.
told her I'd try and give her a heads up.
If Cheryl can't come that night, I'd be willing to meet any other night,
I mean,
Yeah, same
so,
here.
yep,
just as a special meeting, just for
Okay.
Cheryl.
yep, would we
No,
be in trouble
we wouldn't.
by not having it open? to
It's
the-
your meeting.
No, it's open, it'd
It's
be
open.
Well,
open.
to be open, it would be during, I mean,
As long as it's
I'll need to take
posted
time
in the
off of
in the
work,
48 hours and
Well,
that
you
the
could have it
agenda
at
is
night.
there,
Yeah.
you certainly can do anything. But I'll ask her if she can attend on the 9th. If not, I'll ask her to give me some dates and I'll send them
Okay.
back to you.
Yeah, I mean, even April 2nd, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the sooner the better,
Mhm.
based on what you talked about for the facility at 20 and 31.
I think
Sounds like they're close.
if we're going to do anything, we should do it sooner than later. I think
Yes.
the time is
All right, so the
winding
9th
down.
would be preferable, if not possibly the 2nd.
Okay,
I will not be here on the 16th.
I will check with Cheryl.
Okay. Anything else on marijuana? There's plenty, but I
It's
mean,
not an
we're,
open conversation.
yes.
No, I think there's not much more we
Well,
can do
this
right
will
now.
continue to be on every agenda, I can assure you, for months to come. And whatever we can do to help regulate that and vaping, we will do.
So I guess I have a question, and Jim, maybe you know, of the sequence of events for approval for additional marijuana facilities. I understand that on, just the other night, was it the 12th? What day are we? We're the 19th now.
The
So
19th,
last week, I
mhm.
think the Board of Selectmen approved a host agreement or signed a host agreement with another group.
Fourscore, yeah.
But that group didn't have planning board approval yet. And so in what sequence is this supposed to happen, and when does it get to the Board of Health?
In the planning board stage, for instance,
Yeah, please go.
they'll have to comply with the planning board regulations. That's when they ask for input from the Board of Health, they ask for input from all department heads, if they have any aspect of it. The host agreement, they can't go before the planning board, I believe, but they don't ask us anything about approval for a host agreement. Fourscore went to the selectmen, they gave him a host agreement. I didn't attend the meeting. I did find out later that they had a host agreement, but I don't think we have a town planner right now. I don't think he started. So I'm not sure where that's at. So there may be a holdup there because I don't know if Bill's here anymore, and they did hire someone else, and I'm not sure if he's here yet.
I've heard that person will not be coming on board. That could be a rumor, but I've heard that.
I heard the same rumor. I just don't want to make it another rumor because it's only a rumor. But I don't know. I did
Oh, I'm
either
a
stuff.
politician, I can lie all the time. Don't worry about it, it's fine. Yeah.
But in order to get to the planning board, they need a town planner to look at stuff. They hire Graves Engineering that does work. They're looking for odor consultants and stuff. And if you look, they're all from Canada now for some reason.
Wonder why.
It's a huge growing industry.
So, but yeah, it's as far as Fourscore, all I know is it has a host agreement. I have not heard anything. The planning board has sent things. I don't know how without a host agreement, but the planning board has sent me things to look at. But they did give me, and they did drop off an odor mitigation thing that I will scan.
So
in.
nothing's come to the Board of Health for Fourscore?
Yeah, they just dropped off at the last meeting. Their attorney was here, the owner. He dropped off some paperwork to me. I said, well, you have to go through planning. It doesn't, you go through planning, let the engineer look at it, and then they ask us for comments based on our engineering reports from the town. But it seems a little delayed now, and things a little screwed up because the planning board had them asking for comments without a host agreement, and I don't think that was appropriate.
I thought all the boards were supposed to get them at the same time.
They do. But he handed it to me at a marijuana advisory committee meeting because they asked if he had an odor mitigation plan because he knows that the board is looking for 0 odors.
That's right.
So he did, but I just got it the other night when you walked in. He stayed after the meeting, and that was last week. So it's still on the
A
desk.
week ago today, yes.
So I guess to follow up on that,
Mhm.
to clarify for myself and maybe someone else at home, does that mean that the comment period for the board, the way we currently have the process set up, is during the planning review? And then after which, do we have any regulations that require that these types of businesses come before the Board of Health specifically to go over health-related concerns, or no?
This is, sorry, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, please.
he's a grower. They're not allowed to sell retail or anything. They're limited to just a growing facility. So as far as their odor mitigation plan and all that stuff, that has to be presented, which he did hand me something which has not been approved by our engineer or looked at. So I said, you can give it to me, but it's not. You have to go through the proper channels. Zoning, planning, but I don't know why the planning board, but the planning board is in flux right now, and we need to let the planning board do their job. And like you said, is the 45-day comment period. There's not even a town planner right now, but they just got a host agreement the other night, so I don't know how the planning board already had it. And that's my question to them. How are you sending me stuff from the planning board if they need a host agreement before they could go through the process? So that was my question. But Bill's not here anymore, so no one could answer it.
And I guess my question as it pertains to growing is, from a health standpoint, what's in the water that runs off from the watering of those plants, and where is that water diverted to in the process? And what is the Board of Health's role in assuring that THC isn't going into any public waterway or causing any other kind of runoff pesticide problem on an adjacent property or on the property that they're using? What is the water demand of the business, and what impact does that have on water availability to other sewer and water users in town? It sounds silly, but for a small business, potentially none. For a 1 million square foot business, that impact is enormous. And then what are the environmental hazards that come from having a megawatt power generating plant in order to feed a large growing facility, because it consumes an enormous amount of power because the whole growing process is light controlled. So in a day and age where we're all concerned about emissions from our cars and, you know, what we're doing in terms of global warming and climate change and the impact that that has on health, creating this carbon dumping system with no regulation from the board around air quality and concerns for residents in the near vicinity around air quality as a result of the power generating plant. I'm just wondering, when does it get to the place where there's a serious review by the health board in order for those businesses to proceed in town? Because you have the authority to regulate that. So I'm just not sure about the mechanism for it, and I was curious.
All plan reviews will be reviewed. I will send them to the board. But as far as VGG is no more. As far as I'm concerned, everything's off the board. As far as Fourscore, they just got a host agreement, and it's a small building, and they're waiting for comment period. And I will work on getting, and I could forward you but it has not been reviewed by Graves Engineering. He just handed it to me so I'd get it ahead of time. But that was at the meeting the other night. But I'm not sure where they are in the process. Fourscore has been continually I did get some stuff from planning, but they just received their host agreement the other night. So I went to speak to Bill, like I said, in the planning, and said, hey, this seems a little bit backwards. He's not there. There was no one there. Jane wasn't in. It was closed. So I'll look into it.
So
and I'll send you what I have.
And Fourscore is 20,000 square feet. I know that the VGG was proposed at 1 million square
1 million.
feet, so
Yeah.
a heck of a lot of difference.
But what's their water use plan, and
That's
what's
true. I know.
what's the
I,
runoff
we'll
from
have to
from
That's-
growing,
to see.
and how is it being cleaned before it gets dumped back into wherever that goes?
Yep.
Yeah, that's Southbridge Water there. I'm not sure if they're, this used to be an auto parts building, but I'm not sure, they're gonna have to come up with all those plans. They're gonna have to be reviewed, and I will give them all and forward them to the board as soon as I get them.
And I will be happy to go to the planning board also by myself, and I'm sure you or some other concerned citizens may be there, so we can get some answers too, so I could bring that back to this board.
So, through the chair,
Yes.
so they have Southbridge water and sewer then?
No, I don't believe, I'll have to check the lot itself, but I'm not even sure if they're tied into the water yet, but it's
But they
available
will
in South
have
Front.
They will have Southbridge water.
Um,
And the sewer will also be piped, right?
I don't believe so, no.
I'm almost thinking it is.
There it may be, but he wasn't even sure what they had for the water in the building yet. But I know the water goes right by there. It goes to the Mass Pike. It goes right in front of it. It goes to
Juniper Hills.
Juniper Hills.
I'm not so much concerned with what's
Yeah.
coming in, but
It's what's going out. Yeah, they'll
So,
and just like
I'm
Treehouse
assuming
Brewery, they'll test anything that goes in. And Town of Charlton doesn't have that capabilities to filter out it. They'll have to put their own filtration in to assure that. And this is what Peter Bory would check on, that to make sure that anything that's put into Charlton's treatment center can be properly filtered out and doesn't contain any of those contaminants that you're talking about to protect our treatment facility, which is quite small and doesn't have the capability to do certain things. That's why Treehouse Brewery actually had to install a special filtration system.
Yeah,
So
I
when it
remember
came
reading
out,
that.
it was actually cleaner.
Yeah. So this would be all part of the plan. It would be on site plan review. It would be all part of Graves, assuming that they look at all of this and everybody does due diligence from Water Sewer Commission to the Planning Board to Graves Engineering to this board and any other board too, Conservation Commission, whoever.
Her points are well taken. It's a
Yes.
steep driveway onto
Yeah.
Route 20. Where is all this going? They need to come up with a plan so the board never can look at it and say, hey, to assure the public health, safety, and the environment, we're doing the following, and this is our motor mitigation plan, this is our water management filtration. Generators, the DEP will regulate also for noise. I'm not sure if that, they haven't come up with a plan. I haven't seen anything like that. It's just it was a plot, and just basically, there's a lot still to go as far as they're concerned. They're new, but they are just a growing facility and not able to sell.
When are they scheduled to open? Is there like, no,
No
already?
time.
No, there's no time. They still have to get approval from the planning board, so.
But I mean, any facility, even the Route 20 and 31?
He's scheduled to open, he said the end of this month, or I don't believe it's gonna happen. The Cannabis Control Commission is still waiting for approval from them to get the last go, and Kurt. And we have, like I said earlier, we have to get the board to sign off on their permit for
So that
medical
would
only.
be, so that would be medical marijuana sales only at 20 and 31. And I keep
Yes.
forgetting the name of the business,
It's Green Gold Group.
Green Gold
So we
Group.
sign their
So there's no
occupancy
sign out there
permit,
yet.
right?
But,
We sign a permit for them to operate.
So
I
the
know.
occupancy permit.
that you sign the permit for them to operate, providing medical marijuana.
Right.
However, once you give them a permit to operate, they can convert to adult use retail sales without coming back to you, is my understanding.
They have to, we're assuming they have to go back to planning board. Bill was quite adamant that they have to go back before planning for another review before they can go to retail. But you're right, it kind of goes hand in hand. Once you get the medical,
Yeah.
it's
So they
approved.
won't be back to us.
Yeah, so, no.
Well, we hold the cards for the permit on that. So if our permit says medical marijuana use only,
Good point.
Yeah, then they would have to
Can we
come
do
back
that?
before us.
Can we do that?
yeah.
I don't know. I think it'd be very tough to limit them because we really, the board has local authority and
No,
can do
we're
things.
not necessarily limiting them, we're just saying that they, to get the expanded use, they just have
It's
to come back
automatic.
to us.
Once you sign that, once the medical, which has been approved and it's been approved by the Cannabis Control Commission, they're one of the first ones to apply. That is, from my understanding and from speaking to the Cannabis Control Commission, in 90 days, they can go to retail sales. But that's, the planning board deemed otherwise, they feel that, but like I said, that's Bill, and Bill's not here. He has met with Bill, he was on the agenda. He still felt that the other night that he is able to go automatically to retail sales after 90 days.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I think that question is a good question that we ought not to forget when Cheryl Sabara
Yes.
is here.
Right, yeah, I was gonna bring
It's
that
tough
up.
because the Cannabis Control Commission really has authority, and if you cause a manifest injustice, you're not allowed to cause a manifest injustice after a host agreement is signed and there's approval. That's where the legality is, and the only one who could take away the license is the Attorney General.
After the host agreement is signed?
Yes.
And the site
The
plan
host
review is
agreement-
approved.
Oh, then it goes to planning, of course, but I'm saying if they enter into a host agreement with the town, then they can go before zoning, planning, and go before, and then, of course, there's plan review, the Graves Engineering,
Peer review, yeah.
and of course, the last one was not approved by the planning board, so, we stated through a letter through this board that we expect zero emissions from any facility, and I think that's what I told Bill that this board would stand by, and also we need to do odor, noise, I think is always a big issue.
Sure.
People think about always odors, but there's going to be noise issues with all these generators if they're running them,
Right.
so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
just as far as one of the amendments to the, for the marijuana plan as approved by this board, in the definition section of it, it discusses marijuana establishment operating permit. And it defines it as a permit issued by the Board of Health, renewed annually for a fee set by the Board of Health that permits a marijuana establishment to operate within the town of Massachusetts. A separate marijuana establishment operating permit is required for each establishment. So, in the definitions, if we made it part of our regulations that a marijuana operating permit is needed, which I believe we did.
We did.
Sounds like it, yeah.
So I think the question lies, can we define medical marijuana only, recreation, a combo thereof? That's the question.
That's a legal question, I think better served for either town council or to Cheryl because of the situation. If you read the Cannabis Control Commission regulations, which are quite lengthy, there's a lot of protections in there for him. But certainly he knows and they're aware that this board controls the license to operate at any time and can be revoked at any time. I think that question I can pose to Cheryl before she comes, and so she can get a better answer for us.
Please do. I just thought of something. Doesn't the town have a limit on the number of recreational sales? 3.
I believe it's 3.
Three recreational sales establishments in the
They're
town.
limited at 2 right
2.
now, but because of the liquor license. If there's Green Gold Group and is a retail establishment, Fourscore is a grower. I don't know if there's a difference between, but they're not able to sell. Their license is not to open up a retail store or a medical. They're there for.
And they're
a
the
grower.
one on 20, Fourscore.
That's what I'm talking about. Fourscore. They're both on 20. Right.
So they would just do cultivation.
I'd like to, if I may, I know we have to move on, but I'd like
Yeah.
to get a date where maybe we could post a date where the board could go and actually walk through the facility before it opens. I really think you need to go there.
Now you're talking about
Green Gold Group.
Green Gold at Route 20 and 31, where Partners Pizza used to be until 2004.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's up to you guys. If you don't want to go there, but I think that.
No, I'd like to. I want to see 3-inch thick bulletproof glass. That's you know.
It's there.
Yeah.
I think that if you're going to regulate and you guys are authority, I think that you should go and walk through the facility.
16 closed circuit cameras with a direct feed up to the police department, right?
There's a lot of cameras and a lot of TVs in there, so.
Yeah.
But
Good place to hide out. All right, so we'll obviously put this on the agenda for next week. Next meeting.
next meeting, yep.
Next meeting.
And I'll bring those questions up to Cheryl so she can come with some solid answers. So
Please do.
she doesn't have to. And I'll forward those to you.
And we'll be glad to have a special meeting with just her.
Yeah. Okay.
And the community, whoever wants
And
to
the
come.
community, yes.
Sure.
We'll make sure that our
Absolutely.
local Facebook resident here to my right will make
Aye.
sure that
Not on
gets out
Facebook.
to.
There's a lot of
No,
stuff on
right
there.
here.
Oh, I
She
know.
volunteered, right?
I did.
Didn't you
She
hear
did.
Kathleen?
Yeah,
She
I
said,
did.
I'm gonna put this on Facebook.
She definitely said Facebook.
I ought to get out there.
There's about 3 or 4 Charlton sites, I think, on Facebook
Yeah,
now.
good.
I'm doing all.
The more the merrier,
with
because
all
you never
kinds
know
of
who's gonna come in with a
stuff
good
on there.
idea that will help protect
I'm
residents.
finding out more on Facebook than I do going to the town website.
Oh, boy.
Fascinating.
All right, well, more information is better. Anything else on marijuana before we move on?
Not for me.
Okay. All right. We are going to. where is it?
Interviews.
Interviews. Title V engineer interviews. And before we get into this, we need to add something to the agenda that says.
I would add that after the interview's been conducted and you have your sheets to add for the questions
Yes.
that you would ask each, that we add an agenda item to go enter into executive session on Mass General Law, Section 38, Section 21, Section 8, to consider and interview applicants for employment by preliminary screening committee. If the chair declares that an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on obtaining qualified applicants, it shall not be applied to any meeting regarding applicants who have passed some prior preliminary screening. So it's made to talk about potential candidates, but then you must come out of executive session to if you make a decision.
Matt, you have a little more experience with this than I do. Does that sound appropriate?
It does. I'm just a little concerned that it wasn't already posted on the agenda.
Yeah, I did check, and that's why we have to. You can add the agenda item.
Okay.
But you have to. That's why to enter, because if you're going to discuss both candidates in open session, it's not appropriate. Good discussion character. That
And
you
that's
should
the only thing that will be discussed in the executive session after the interviews will be the discussion between the board members.
But I understand what Matt's saying because it was on there, so I checked, I made some calls, and they said that, yeah, the board can add an agenda item because you are doing interviews, which has already been posted, and it is appropriate to enter an executive session to discuss both candidates. And I just did this maybe 2-3 months ago when I hired at the other position. We interviewed an open session, went an executive session to discuss tactics and
Just
strategies.
I'm gonna go call.
I don't disagree about the executive session. Just that it wasn't posted.
That's why I called today to check what was legal.
If you're good with it, that's good, because that's a lot of
Well,
red
yeah.
tape we don't have to deal with.
Yeah,
so
It's
let's
up
go
to
with
the
it.
board. If you don't, you can discuss it both in open session. It's up to the board.
No, I think it needs to be discussed in executive session, as
Yeah.
long as we don't get in trouble because of the politics of how it rolls out, because we didn't have that technically posted on the agenda. If we
Yep.
can add that line item and go with it, I'm fine
Well,
with
that's,
that.
I made some calls and they couldn't get through to it, so I called other communities and spoke to the town clerks, and they said, because I asked, they couldn't give a motion, and they said, if it's not in there, it's not posted at the time of the meeting. If you've had the interviews on there, it would be to add the agenda item in a vote, to enter into executive session, to discuss your potential two candidates rather than discussing that in open session character or whatever,
Right.
or anything, and then come out of the executive session to determine if you deem so to appoint someone. If you want to wait, you can do the interviews and we can post it at another meeting. That's fine by me if you feel that.
No, if you're good with it, because if we have to postpone it, that's you know,
Yeah, I
time
know.
is of the essence. It's springtime. We don't want
I
to
know.
postpone it.
People
I
are
just
coming.
don't want to. I'm just making sure that
Well,
you
I'm
look
sort
into it.
of.
So.
I did look into it, so unless someone gave me bad advice, which
Okay.
is always, but I did do my due diligence to check and asked an experienced person that who's in charge of posting meetings and stuff, and she
Okay.
looked it up for me and said yes, the chairman can ask for a motion to add an agenda item because the interviews were on there, because you should not be discussing
Right.
after the interview. You should do it in executive session.
I agree 100%.
And this will be the only thing that we discuss in executive session, just to make that clear again.
Yeah, like I said, I did, and if I got bad advice, I apologize, but I did
Then it's
check
on
and
you.
check and check, and it's on me.
James Philbrook.
So I'll be, but I did check, so.
Okay.
I'm sure.
Because you're right, it was not on the agenda, so I would take full responsibility. But if you deem so not to vote to go into executive session, then you could delay it and we'll post another meeting.
Say we go with the flow.
Well, we gotta wait for Kathleen because we're gonna need a motion and a second and a vote. As soon as she
You
comes back
can-
in.
Yep.
Now, we can, well, I think we should do that before we even start the interviews.
Sure.
right?
It's up to you.
She'll
Mr.
be back,
Chairman,
yes.
just curious, do you have a method on which interview is going first, or
I don't.
should we flip a coin? Is there?
I left it open to the board, this discussion, who you wanted to go first. So.
I don't have any preference. I really don't.
Does anyone have, I mean, so.
Do either one of you have time sensitivity that one needs to get going more than the other, or?
I have little kids, so I'd prefer to go first, but if Tom has a conflict.
So
We're-
did you
we're-
decide to go into executive session?
Well, we are going to, but while you were out and evidently walking down the hall, we were trying to jump the gun a little bit and decide who was gonna go first. It looks like Jamie will go first. Jamie.
Jamie.
And-
Jamie Terry.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. So,
Need a motion
In-
to add an agenda item?
in the meantime, we're gonna make a motion to add an agenda item to go into executive discussion for purposes of discussing qualifications of the candidates after we interview them. That's it, and then we'll come out of executive session afterwards.
And that's on the list. And that's on the list.
It's gonna be added as an agenda
It's-
item, but
that's
we need
what
to.
we're-
we need
It's on
to
the
add-
list for the reasons you can go into executive session.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's right here.
There's a whole list, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's one of them.
That's the one I read, number 8, yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm good.
So moved.
So moved. So with what you said, somebody,
What you said.
yeah, what you said. So we have a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so,
Okay,
all right.
so Jamie, if you would like to come on up, we'll start first with you.
No, this is open session for the interview. When they're done the interviews, then they would go into executive session.
Sorry, I wasn't paying
And then they would come out of executive session, but this is the interview for Title V.
Yeah, you're welcome to stick around for this, by all means.
Just gonna grab my
This is must-see TV, John.
Yeah, oh, sure. It hopefully won't be as long as last time, 3 hours and 40 minutes for the last meeting. So I don't think we'll go that far. So what we have is a series of 10 questions, and seeing as I'm chairman, I guess I'll start with question number
You got
1.
extra ones there? Thank you.
There you go. This is pretty easy. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Great. I brought copies of my resume.
Yep.
George, you already have those?
We do. I just gotta find it. I did read it and then reread it again today.
So I've been in public health for 16 years. It's 2 pages. Do you want more?
Well, you have nicer paper.
I know, I
Yeah,
printed it out
the colored
nice.
pages.
This is nice stuff. We're going with this.
For Would you like one, Kathy?
I've got it right here.
Okay.
And I'm all set too.
Thank you. So I've been in public health for 16 years in local government. I guess my longest stint was in Northborough for 10 years, or a little under 10 years. I love the community of Northborough. Specific, I guess I'll talk to my background about septic. That seems to be the most prevalent for what we're talking about here.
Sure.
In Northborough, it was 75% septic systems, 25% town sewer. And so the good part of the community was, Northborough was slightly bigger than Charlton. So I was there for 9 years. Again, I loved it. I'm a Title V inspector, a soil evaluator, a registered sanitarian. Those are the things pertaining specifically to septic. I've taken public health management courses, as you can see. I won't read my resume, but I have it in front of me. From there, I left. I have 3 small children, and I live in Charlton. I'm a resident here in town. I've
How
lived
many
here-
years? I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's
How many
okay.
years?
I've lived here since 2010, so
Okay.
9 years. So I have 3 small children in town, and when my oldest went into first grade, she wanted me to come read in library, and the commute to Northborough back kind of shot half the day just to read in library. So an opportunity came up for me to take an emergency planner role, which, as you know, I contact all of you and do the call down drills. And so it became open. It's in the same public health realm. It's working with 74 communities across central Massachusetts, and it allows me to do my work for that on the off hours. And so I can make the phone calls, but I can do all the reports when my kids go to bed. I can do all the deliverable action plans when my kids go to bed. So it really was a good opportunity for me to be able to do the things close to town to be with my kids. I missed immediately the outdoor septic portion of the job, the field work, and as it had, the director for the Sturbridge Health Department took another position and contacted me knowing I had all the right certifications about 3 months after I left Northborough, and asked if I would cover until they hired somebody. I covered for 3 years as an interim because it worked out well for both of our schedules. I finally gave them they did find somebody, and the person stayed for 5 months, and then the person left because she went back closer where she lived. And so they called me up again, and so I covered from August to December 20th of this past year. But I really feel like that is a full-time position. It is a health director position, and it needs to have a full-time person. And so I gave them my notice on December 20th. They've still yet to find somebody. So only in a pinch now I help them when they need it. And I'm also, I interviewed for and was provided the health agent position in Brimfield.
So you're still doing, you're still a health agent in Brimfield, is that correct?
Correct, it's not a full-time position.
Okay. All right, any questions from Matt or Kathleen?
No?
Nope.
That's one question down. Next question, the current policy of the Board of Health for plan reviews is Tuesday to the following Tuesday. Can you meet this demand or do better?
Sure.
Okay, so you understand that this is all the Title V plans that I think as a board, we discussed this previously, how as builders, man, I think you probably have a pretty close relationship with some of the builders, more so than Kathleen or me, but you were able to articulate how it's very important to get these get the plans through as quickly as possible, get them approved, engineered, and get the people into their house and get the contractors paid and the builder paid, and of course the quicker the people can get into their new house, the better. So
Yeah, it's if I may,
please go ahead.
it's a time-sensitive thing.
Sure.
The target's Tuesday for Tuesday. In a perfect world, that's what it would be. Things come up, so it's not like, hey, you gotta, that's not what we're shooting for. But generally speaking, we're not trying to go 30 days or whatnot. It's been a week turnaround when Jim was doing it, and that seemed to be it was great. He'd pick them up on Tuesday and drop off on Tuesday, and it was just that rotation. And feels like the majority of the installers were just comfortable, and the engineers and all that. So that it's not like you don't have it on Tuesday, we're gonna have a problem. That's not the intent
I
here.
understand. And I've done your interim work since Jim passed away, and Andrea and Kim have messaged me when something comes in because I live in town. It's been extremely convenient for me to come over. I've probably gotten here quicker than I heard has been attended in the past.
Yeah.
So my caveat to that would be I would commit to having a review done, but then it's on if there's a revision necessary, it's
Yeah.
on the other party.
Right.
But my philosophy in anything septic or anything that I do in any part of the Board of Health is there's somebody on the other end of that. And more likely my focus is that it's a homeowner on the other end of that, and that's where I feel like someone's waiting for you no matter what, and they're spending a very significant amount of money to put in a very large investment in their property,
Yeah.
and they need to know it's going to go as smoothly as it can in as timely a fashion as they can. And obviously the installers are trying to make sure they can schedule their work out. I understand that, and I'm fully on board with that. But
One quick follow-up to that. I was curious because I don't know the answer to this. We are coming up on springtime. We're going to see a lot of septic plants coming across. Matt, again, I'm going to defer to you as far as a rough amount. What's the high maximum or number of plans that somebody like Jamie or whoever we hire would be doing in a given week?
I don't know that answer. I know there's a development coming up, and that one development has 40 plans. So
But you wouldn't have 40 in a week.
it may be submitted all at once. It may not. I mean, that seems like 40 per. It's. I would say, Jamie, you might know better, but like
it's probably unlikely
5
that they'd
to
all come
10.
in. Yeah,
10 to
3
Jim
to
Jim might be
8.
able to speak to it, but there's a log sheet in the drawer if you'd like to look through and see
No,
when
I'm
the
just
needs were.
curious.
It will be really busy during the warmer months of the year.
Oh, yeah.
And but really busy could mean 10,
Yeah, maybe 10.
It's not productive for the engineer to submit all 40 at once really either.
It's not practical.
Yeah, so it's probably that they would submit 5 or 10 at a time, I would say.
Okay.
Typically, in my other towns, I've seen maybe 4 come in at once from an engineer because they have to put their time and effort into it too.
Okay. All right. Kathleen, you're quiet.
Almost,
Anything?
yep.
If anything comes up, please interrupt. Question number 3. How would you handle a case where an installer is aggrieved by your decision?
Sure. I guess my response, and then can I ask you a little clarifying on
Sure.
that?
I
Is
didn't
it-
write the questions, by the way.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm just the reader.
Is that aggrieved at a code concern or aggrieved because of the timelines or?
Well, it's kind of open-ended.
Okay.
Jim?
Well, that's fine.
It's open-ended, it's meant to be that way, so.
That's fine.
Okay.
My response is, I've not always, I think that my reaction time to get out and do an inspection is such that I don't typically have conflicts with an installer telling me that my timelines don't work out with them, and that's because I know there's a homeowner on the other end of that. They have a bottom inspection, that means there's a large hole in their front or backyard and they could have kids or animals or whatever, so I try to be extremely timely about it, so I've not run into a concern about not getting somewhere in the timeline that somebody needs. If we disagree about something, I guess the best compliment that I was ever provided was from my old town administrator in Northborough, who told me, you can tell somebody absolutely no and they still leave with a smile on their face. You can just communicate really well even if it's not what somebody wants to hear. And so that's my goal, is always to be open communication, to call up the installer directly if they're not on site with me. Typically, if it's somebody I haven't worked with before, I like to meet them on site at least for a couple of times so that they know what I'm looking for. I like to pour water into a D-box and make sure that all the flows run evenly. That's not typically something that everybody requests, and so I'll just let them know, hey, can you have a bucket of water on site? But if something was installed improperly or was missing, I have their phone number, I call them directly. I try to be very direct with them.
Okay.
I've never gotten into a fight with an installer or
I would
anything.
hope
Okay.
No. Number 4, how will you keep track of work completed?
Sure. The system that this office is using is a sign-in sheet, sign-out sheet for any plans that they have. I took it out of my notebook here for you, but I have a log sheet which says the day that I picked it up, the address that it was, the engineer, the installer, if it's known yet, their phone numbers, and what, if it's for a tight tank, if it's for a full system. And then I just write the date that, so if it was like a perk, I would write the date that I did the perk, and then I send on-site, I have sent on-site to whichever town I'm working for, pictures of whatever I've seen, or completed log sheets for soil evaluations and such.
Moving right along. 5, are you willing to talk to homeowners and advise in Title V matters?
Absolutely. I think that some of the biggest things that I like to put forth are all related to the homeowner. I brought in a sample permit that I've used in the past. If you wanted to take a look at it, it says right on it all the details that I think a homeowner is interested in. Would you like a copy? And so,
Excuse me.
essentially, I like to type it out like this every time I do a plan review, because it spells out right on here. If we check off it's a well or it's town water, there's no question there. It spells out the system is designed for. It would say proposed 3-bedroom house if it's new construction, or it would say existing 3-bedroom house. Primary installation would be a 1,500-gallon septic tank, or in that case with a tight tank, a 3,000-gallon tight tank sealed with an alarm. Secondary installation is the leach area, so that's the size 16-foot by 27-foot leach field. If they had any, the notes, I always put the same notes. Final fill and grade need to be shown on the engineer as-built. Existing system needs to be abandoned in accordance with 15.354. And then if it's a poly barrier or anything like that, that's where I put it. Variance is sought, so the 2 that were here tonight, it would say well variance, sieve analysis, wetland offset. And then the bottom is a certificate of compliance. It specifically, we would check off which, what would be required of this. This is where we would put on that one 2-bedroom deed restriction. We'd check that off. The date that it was verified or inspected and then signed by, and then essentially when all inspections are completed, it is a legal document of a certificate of compliance. Although Andrea and I had talked on the one that had come through while I was doing your interim work, that we would still utilize the state form because she wanted to be able to stamp it with that stamp that Jim told you that he got. But this is a legal document, has been reviewed, and would be able to be a certificate of compliance if it were to be needed. The reasons that I like this form is because I think it spells it out for a homeowner, and I think I don't plan on this, but I was on maternity leave when I was in Northborough 3 times, and that means somebody else covered for me those 3 times. And it was just easier for me if they had the signatures right on the permit, and it was easier for the installer to not have to track down the person that had covered for me. You have the signature right there. So this is one document that I like to use because I think a homeowner really, we need to keep them informed as to what's going on for their system. And then I have a 1-page installer as-built that I use, although you guys have a very lengthy installer as-built at this point in time. I think is very useful for a property owner to have swing ties. But it's one thing to have a big plan in front of you, and as an installer and engineer, you know what you're looking at. But a homeowner doesn't always, and if you just want to dig up and find your tank to have it pumped out, which you should do, I feel like those little swing tie documents is just an easier form for the homeowner.
I have, there's two residences in town that don't even know where their septic tank is, that I know of. I mean, these are friends of mine, and I'm like, what? You don't even know where your tank is?
I would think that's pretty
And they've been there
common.
for years and years and decades.
So this is the line of work that I do, and my in-laws had a septic system for 30 years and didn't know where all the details of it were, so.
Didn't even have a clue as to where the septic tank is. That's scary. I'm sorry, I'm off on a bit of a tangent, Jerry. Jerry, I called you Jerry again.
That's okay.
Jamie Terry. So this is your form. The homeowner gets a copy of it.
Yeah, so typically I would have 4 copies made. For the file, the installer would be able to keep one on site, the homeowner would get one, and the engineer would get one. We don't have to use it. I mean, it's obviously, this is just something that I have used in the past. I find it has value. If this board and your director decided this was not the way you wanted to go, there's a state form for sure that could be used.
But for the ones that you've been doing since Jim Malley passed, is this what has come to the board, Jim? Have we gotten some of these?
Yes.
Okay.
This is something she sent forward. We haven't implemented it yet because we stayed in status quo until things have changed and we can take a look at tightening up the paperwork, because there's quite a bit of it right now.
And so essentially, when I do the plan review, this is just a document that I have, that I type into.
Mhm.
It's not additional work on Andrea or Kim or anything like that. And it's, for me, it just keeps it very clear to a homeowner. It tells you the soil types, it tells you the perk rate, it gives you who the engineer is, the plan, all that.
Pretty neat.
Thanks.
It's all on one page. Okay. Anything
Hard
else?
to get it on one page, but yes.
Number 6, do you have a problem reporting to the health director?
No, not at all. Jim and I work really well together.
That's pretty easy. I told Jim he can't ever leave.
Well, you guys, I report to you, so
Well, we're not gonna let you leave. That's it, you know? Anything else? I mean, otherwise we'll just move right on to number 7.
Yeah, let's move on, because it's getting late.
All right. Will you be able to attend Board of Health meetings for variances?
Yes.
Number 8, what makes you the best applicant for this position?
Well, I like Tom a lot. Tom and I work really well together as well, and I've known him for many years, so I'd prefer to tell you about myself versus compare myself to Tom. I think that I've a proven track record of doing this job for 16 years. I think that I've worked in a variety of different settings with different levels of experienced people. I think I have a really good disposition and I can build good relationships with people such as installers and engineers in town. I have a very good working relationship with the engineers and installers in this area because of my work in Sturbridge for the last 3 years.
You did the Title V's for Sturbridge while you were?
I did all their septic reviews and
Septic
yeah, I
reviews.
wasn't the one on site doing somebody's Title V. That's
Okay.
a private situation. But I worked for the town in the capacity that I'm interviewing for.
What is your availability? That's question 9. So.
Sure. So I live in town, and so short of being on a vacation, I feel like I'm available here to do these inspections. I have been for your interim. I know that there was a time where there was a tank going in and there was some groundwater found, and it was a Friday, and I know that the town hall isn't open, but I went out and did the inspections. Again, I come back to that whole, I think it's really important to make sure that the homeowner has the quickest and easiest solutions to their challenges.
Excuse me. Will you be submitting plans for installations of systems designed by you or someone who works for you at any time?
No. I don't do designs.
Okay. That's it for questions. Matt or Kathleen, do you have anything else for
No,
Jamie?
I'm good.
No, I do want to say thank you for what you've been doing for the town. I know you stepped
Thank
up
you.
for us, so I know you've been busy and appreciate that.
Thank you.
Helped the board out.
It's a great community. I love living here, and I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you.
And thank you for the fun.
Best of luck.
Thanks.
thank you, Jamie.
Tom? Next up is Tom Purcell.
Don't close the door because it'll lock.
I went and opened it because it was locked.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what I was worried
This
about.
door will lock?
No, the one at the end of the hall was locked.
They knocked me out.
But we have an open
And then you
meeting.
can't get out?
No,
You
I
can't
was
get in.
locked out. I thought the building was locked.
Oh.
You guys were
Oh,
going
you
into
went down the hall.
executive session
Okay.
and Gateway.
We wouldn't do that without you.
No, but if we're in a meeting and someone complains it's locked, that's why I gotta make sure it's unlocked.
Okay, sure. Go ahead, Jim. We'll just go ahead and get started. All right, Tom. We're going to be giving you the same 10 questions. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, my name is Tom Purcell. I'm a registered sanitarian and I've been it for the last 32 years. I was a registered pharmacist. I retired. I made the crossover into public health, where I've been doing Board of Health agents work, and then I went into private practice for a good number of years. I still do the public sector as well in one other community. But I'm looking to cut back on my private, or eliminate my private practice and get back into some of the public sector itself.
Kathleen and Matt, step in any time, otherwise I'm gonna just keep moving along here. Current policy in the Board of Health for plan reviews is Tuesday to Tuesday. Can you meet this demand or do better?
Absolutely. It's not a problem at all. For Tuesday to Tuesday, or I can, if the need comes up where they need something faster than that, it's absolutely not a problem. I can do even a same-day turnaround if we had to do that.
Okay.
Excuse me. I have to unlock the front door.
Sure. Number 3, how would you handle a case where an installer is aggrieved by your decision?
Well, if the installer is aggrieved by my questioning is quality of workmanship, that's one situation that we'd actually call the designing engineer in at that point. The designing engineer is the master. The town is actually the professional witness at that. And if the installer is doing something wrong or doing something not in compliance with the plan, well, it's up to the engineer to make sure that the installer does the proper thing. As far as timeliness is concerned, I have a policy that anytime you call for an inspection, I respond within 24 hours. This is a game of turnover and doing it as quickly and conveniently as possible for all parties. In the old days, before people would call up and the installers would actually call up and say, I'm ready for an inspection. I have trained installers to call me the day before so that it becomes seamless. We go out and they call me yesterday to tell me they're ready for an inspection today, and at what time, and I'll be there at that time. In the old days, what they used to do is they call for an inspection, they have to wait a day or 2 days or whatever, so they'd be doing 2 jobs at the same time. Duplicate equipment, cost the homeowners a lot more money. If we try to make things seamless, and all of a sudden I saw what the contractors were doing, they were starting to eliminate the extra piece of equipment. Became a cost savings, they passed the cost savings. They're more controlled cost savings. Some of these systems are so expensive that there's not much you can do except if you make it as expeditious as possible so that the installer can get in and out very quickly, his costs go down, which gets passed on as a value to the homeowner. That's my philosophy on that.
How will you keep track of work completed?
Typically, what we do is, depending on what town and what the town's policy is, one town, we make sure that the installer calls in for inspections. Paper is generated. We don't necessarily have to go into the office to pick it up. Today's technology has made it so wonderful that I just get an email, go out into the field, we can go out and do the inspection the way they were supposed to do it. We respond in writing back to the office. The office has a record that I was there and what we were looking for and what we did for an inspection. And then I would keep track of that and then submit, obviously, invoicing on a monthly basis, that's all.
Are you willing to talk to homeowners and advise in Title V matters?
Absolutely. Again, my policy is to try to get answer any questions that I could with the homeowners or any of their concerns. but I also try to stay within a certain guidelines that we're the enforcing agency. What we are not is we're not the designer. Okay, we're not gonna go in and tell the designer what to do or step on the designer's toes. The designer has an obligation to go and talk to his client. I'd be perfectly willing to meet with any homeowners if they have any concerns, any questions, short of how do I design this. If it's a matter of you don't need a design, we can all do this, or you can call an installer, or you can do a minor repair with a permit without an engineer, stuff like that. Yeah, that's no problem at all. And my availability is any reasonable hours, 5 days a week or 7 days a week, whatever they really need.
Question 6, do you have a problem reporting to the health director?
As long as he doesn't hit me. No, I don't. Jim and I have we've known each other for years. I don't have a problem with Jim at all.
Okay. Will you be able to attend Board of Health meetings for variances?
Yes. Now you're talking variances or local upgrade approvals or both?
Well, this says variances, so I'm going with what it says.
Okay.
And these would be, this board, as for the past 3 years that I've been on the board, we've only met on Tuesday evenings for things like this. Correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but Tuesdays. So it would be Tuesday evenings where any variances would come before the board at a regular meeting.
Okay, well, to run a clarification, there is a difference between variances and local upgrade approvals. I'm not sure that all local upgrade approvals ever came before the board prior to Mr. Malley's passing. I think that he took care of all the local upgrades without coming to the board.
That may be, you know?
I was going to say something to both candidates after this, when Tom was done, so.
Okay, well.
But yes, that is correct.
And Jim usually handled all the local upgrade approvals. Some boards, I have, my experience is 1 or 2 boards like to be involved in the local upgrade approval process. But typically, most boards don't want to. They will act as a hearings officer or as a procedural officer in the event of, or in the case where the regulation calls for it. There has to be a public hearing for, let's say, if we're going to put a septic system within 100 feet of an abutter's well or encroach on the property line. Those require public hearings. The rest of the local upgrade approvals do not require public hearings, and there's not much of an involvement with the public. And we've always had a pretty good relationship of not abusing the local upgrade approval standards. Design standards are strict, local upgrade approval, then variances, and then further on down the line.
Okay.
So.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Well, we have you both here. I, as a member of the board, I recognize that sometimes Tuesdays are, Tuesday nights, and Jim Malley would come here and sit here, and it'd be like, one day I said, Jim, you don't have to come to the meetings. Like, don't worry about it, If we had something that we knew was on the target, and on the agenda, sometimes we would call and say, hey, such and such is coming in with this. He would be familiar with it. Like you did today, if you weren't available tonight, we might have called you during the day. You okay with that? And get your feel for it. So it's not a must by any means. Jim didn't come for the last 3 years.
No.
But if we needed him or we had a question, we called him. So it's not I guess I'm just telling both you guys, we're not expecting you guys to come to our meetings every Tuesday. In fact, you may not have to come. We actually wanted Jim to come every once in a while just because we hadn't seen him, and that was about it. So.
Yeah, that was my concern, the differentiation between a variance. Variance, absolutely. Variance requires a public hearing. Local upgrade approvals do not.
Right.
And the question is just about variances
Yeah,
anyway.
just variances.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 8, what makes you the best applicant for this position?
Well, my 30 years' experience at the job, pretty much in both aspects of, or actually all three aspects. In the inspections part of it, I'm a licensed inspector, I'm a soils evaluator, and I'm a registered sanitarian. And I'm in private practice now. And again, even my private practice I've been doing for 25 years, thereabouts.
Okay.
And I have a pretty vast experience, vast amount of experience at virtually everything that's out there with Title V. I've seen almost everything that there is.
Okay.
That's scary.
Yeah, I know. What is your availability?
24/7, 365, if that's what I have to be. I do take some time in the winter, but again, if the job demands it, I just won't make it. I can take the usual vacation, but not an extended vacation.
Well, along those lines, the season, for lack of a better term, ends with hard freeze, when the ground freezes, and typically it's what, late November,
Christmas.
early Christmas.
Thereabouts.
With global warming, that makes
Yeah, I know.
Maybe New
Maybe
Year's.
year round.
That-
So that from then until about March or April, depending on the.
That was a godsend for a lot of reasons. First of all, when Title V got rewritten or readdressed in '95, it changed the whole profile of soil testing. Even some of us that were reading into the old Title V, where we were doing perk tests in the wintertime only. We couldn't do perk tests in the summertime. We ran into all kinds of problems. All of a sudden, there was all kinds of land that was unbuildable because you couldn't get it to perk because groundwater was interfering with the testing. Well, some of us went out and we decided we'll do the deep observation holes in the wintertime because we didn't know how to read for water table. When they changed it in '95 and they sent us all back to school, now we could read water table any time of the year. We could do perk tests any time of the year. Matter of fact, we try not to do perk tests at this time of the year because most of them are in the, well, some areas in Charlton, a lot of areas in Oxford, and they have high water tables, and it's just impossible to perk them. There was an awful lot of equipment breakage. It was also dangerous in the wintertime to be doing a lot of the work. Jim kind of saved everybody by restricting the season or the boards because it's a general practice in.
That's right. We do. We call the season at the.
Right.
Right.
And it was a general practice. Now it became a kind of a semi-regional practice. Nobody does any installations. First, we have several problems with trying to do wintertime installations. Safety, equipment breakage, materials availability, proper installation because you're trying to backfill with frozen material or semi-frozen material. You can't get septic sand because the washing plants are all closed because they don't have any stockpile and they don't have water to do their washing. So because they freeze all the material and all that. And then they can't top dress the material. They can't finish the jobs, and they're all going back in May or April or May or June to finish the job. So that's a lot of jobs were open. That's why it became important to make it so that these installers we could be as expeditious as possible with them. They could get more work done by speeding the jobs up, less expense, and really make it pretty convenient for everybody. We did change the face of septic system installation over the last 20 years. And thanks to Jim and a few of the old-time installers, it really became again a boon for the homeowner. They did save a lot of money.
All right, thank you. Final question. Will you be submitting plans for installations of systems designed by you or someone who works for you at any time?
That's a conflict of interest, and no, that can't happen.
Okay.
Although I do have a couple of outstanding contracts, and according to the conflict of interest rules, I'm allowed to finish or complete my contracts, my contractual obligations with, I have 2 or 3 jobs still out there. I have a lot of jobs on your files that are approved, that are sitting there that are not installed. So I cannot go in and inspect any of my own work, and I cannot sign off on my own work. That way, you know, I mean, if Jim wanted to go out and actually witness it, or if any one of the members of boards, or if you wanted to have Jamie Terry go out and inspect any of my jobs, by all means, that's fine. But I can't take on any new jobs if I become your Title V agent. And as far as numbers of jobs, last year you did 53.
Total.
Yeah. Because I did perk number 53, December 20th.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Cassell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Okay. I think what we're gonna do,
Thank
I think what we're gonna need then is a motion to adjourn and go into executive session.
And to come out for the purpose of, you have to read the last part too.
Purpose is to come out and reconvene in open session to make a decision on if you deem so necessary for your Title V inspector. Because I noticed in here, and this is what I questioned today, it says the meeting must be convened in open session posted. This is for executive session. With executive session listed on the agenda, which Matt was concerned about, when reasonably anticipated by the chair, and that's what I noted till he said, well, because the interviews are set up, it would be inappropriate to speak in open session. You can make add an agenda item. So if I got wrong advice, but that's what I got.
I don't
so.
see a problem. I don't think this is.
I think it'd be more inappropriate to talk about character in
I
open
agree.
session.
I agree. This should not be, I think it's well within our right to do exactly what we're doing now.
Yeah, it's just a question of whether it should have been put on the agenda.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's why I was concerned, and I made some.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thanks for like humoring me while I was just hanging out and
Yeah.
learning what you guys are like do.
Thank you very much.
I got
Stop by and
I
see you
will.
later.
Thank you.
Get easy.
All right, so do we have a motion
Yeah,
from one of the members?
make that
Motion.
motion.
To go into executive session?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are now in executive session.